Imagine the quiet of a night when the world outside seems to fold itself into shadows, the kind of silence that makes you feel as though the stars themselves are leaning closer to listen. You and I are here together, as if sitting by a lamp with flame steady but soft, a pool of light that holds us gently in its circle. The rain may fall somewhere far away, or perhaps it is only the hum of the air, yet already your breath slows, your shoulders ease. Tonight, we step into a story that is both ancient and strangely familiar, a story of the Mayan civilization, one of stone cities, painted skies, and lives woven through jungle and time. But here's the quiet twist that keeps us leaning in. When we picture the Maya, we so often imagine vanished temples, ruins swallowed by vines, a people disappeared. Yet, as we will discover together, the Maya never disappeared at all. Their descendants still walk, cook, speak, laugh, and dream across Central America. Their voices echo the same languages that once guided kings and astronomers. That gentle surprise that what feels gone is in fact still alive sets the tone for our wandering tonight. Breathe slowly with me, because in a moment you'll see why this matters. The ruins we picture in moonlight are not tombstones, but open doors. To step among them is not to disturb the past, but to join a long conversation that has never truly stopped. And so, as you sink further into comfort, you may imagine that the ground beneath your blanket has shifted into warm jungle soil, the air rich with night blossoms, the sky pricked with more stars than you have ever seen at once. Each star is a note in a melody the Maya once knew by heart. Their astronomers charted Venus with care as though it were a traveling neighbor. Their calendar was not a doomsday clock, but a rhythm of planting, harvest, ceremony, and time itself breathing in cycles. Stay with me, because here is where the story begins to open. While you and I drift through this river of history, we'll pause often, not for battles, not for fear, but for the sound of cooking fires, the warmth of woven cotton against the skin, the hush of paintbrush bristles dragging along a mural wall. These are the textures of life, the ones that make sleep safe and curiosity gentle. You'll see why. As we move further, the ordinary moments, how someone ground maize at dawn, how rain smelled when it touched limestone steps, are the very threads that hold the grand temples together. Let's turn the lamp a little lower and imagine sitting with someone in the Maya lowlands 1,000 years ago. The twist here is how similar their evening might have felt. They too sat in dim light, with voices softening as night deepened, telling stories to help one another rest. We are not outsiders peering in, but companions rejoining an old circle. And yet, before the comfort lulls too deeply, let me place one more quiet pebble of intrigue at your side. The Maya carried an idea of time that might change the way you feel about this very night. To them, time was not a straight arrow but a spiral, events repeating in cycles, lessons returning until they were understood. So as you drift in the circle of your breath, know that the past we are exploring is not sealed away. It is a loop you are already walking. You, resting here, are part of the spiral the Maya once traced in the stars. In a few pages more, I'll show you how they built cities of such grace and height without wheels, without iron, without horses. But for now, let's linger in the quiet knowledge that they did so because their sense of the universe was not that resources were limited, but that cycles were infinite. The sun would rise again, the maize would sprout again, the stories would return, as they always do, here at your bedside tonight. As you breathe slowly, imagine the faint rustle of cotton garments, the whisper of sandals on stone, the almost silent flick of a torch against the wall. Someone is painting a glyph, a word in curves and corners, a word that will still be read by their descendants centuries later. The air is humid, heavy with the perfume of flowers that only open after dusk. You are safe here, surrounded by lives that once were, and yet, in another way, still are. And now, gently, let us step toward Chapter 1. There, I'll show you not the fall of the Maya, but their beginning, the way villages grew into cities, the way time itself seemed to find a home in their calendars and stones. Stay with me, because what feels like an ending is often only a beginning in another part of the spiral. You and I begin not with ruins, but with soil. Imagine a land as it was thousands of years ago, before any stone was stacked in pyramids, before glyphs were etched into walls. The lowlands of present-day Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and southern Mexico stretched with endless green. The air was heavy with moisture, the kind of dampness that makes every leaf glisten, and the ground beneath your feet gave way softly, rich with the promise of crops. The people here were not yet rulers of vast kingdoms. They were families, tending maize, beans, and squash. Close your eyes and picture the gentle scrape of stone tools, the rhythmic grinding of maize on metate, the rising smell of tortillas cooked over open fires. These sounds and scents were the heartbeat of what would grow into civilization. In a moment, you'll see how important maize was, not just as food, but as spirit. The Maya believed humans themselves were shaped from maize dough, a belief told in their creation story, the Popol Vuh. To eat maize was to partake in one's own origin, to stay alive both in body and in myth. As you breathe slowly, imagine the warmth of fresh tamales wrapped in leaves, steam rising in the cool morning air. In that quiet, you might feel what they felt, a bond between soil, food, and soul so close it cannot be untied. Stay with me here, because already we can see how ordinary tasks were seeds of extraordinary culture. As small villages grew, so too did their stories, their rituals, their shared sense of time. Picture a clearing in the jungle where villagers gathered to mark the passing of the seasons. They may not yet have towering temples, but they have firelight, drums, and voices chanting under the stars. That rhythm carried forward into the great cities yet to come, like Tikal and Palenque. What we know as ruins began as gatherings of neighbors who looked up at the same night sky you and I are looking at in imagination now. And here is a gentle surprise. The earliest Maya villages emerged around 2000 BC, not far from when other great civilizations were stirring across the world. While Egyptians built pyramids along the Nile, the Maya were shaping their own destiny in jungles thousands of miles away, unaware of each other yet bound by the same human need to belong, to explain the stars, to build from the earth upward. Doesn't it feel soothing to think of humanity blossoming in many gardens at once, each unaware, yet each reflecting a shared impulse to turn sky into story? Let's turn the lamp lower. Picture the thatched houses of early Maya families, walls of wattle and daub, roofs of palm leaves. Inside, the air warm with smoke and the smell of food, the soft hush of conversation. Children's laughter mixing with the hiss of logs on the fire. These are the small, enduring details, the sounds you could almost hear through the centuries, that make the Maya feel close. As time spiraled, villages became centers. Leaders emerged, perhaps chosen for their wisdom, their ability to connect the people to the gods through ritual. Imagine sitting by a fire, watching a shaman draw symbols in the dust, explaining when to plant, when to wait, when to give thanks. In those marks lay the beginning of calendars, the start of science disguised as ceremony. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see how their sense of time shaped not only farming, but also faith. The Maya believed the world had been created and destroyed in cycles. Each day carried its own spirit, its own energy. To live was to weave yourself into that pattern. When they placed stones upon stones to mark sacred sites, they were not simply building. They were harmonizing earth with sky, human with divine. By around 1000 BC, these centers grew more complex. Ceremonial platforms rose, painted pottery flourished, trade routes stretched. Picture a quiet canoe gliding through jungle rivers, carrying cacao beans, obsidian blades, or feathers bright as the sunset. The rivers were highways of connection, like soft ribbons winding through green. And here is a gentle revelation I promised. As these people built, they did not imagine their work would someday crumble into ruins for strangers to wander. They built with the belief that the cycle would always return, that their children's children would sing the same songs, plant the same maize. Time for them was not fragile, but endlessly renewing. So, as you breathe slowly, imagine standing at the edge of an early Maya clearing, the smell of damp earth after rain, torches flickering against the night. You are there not as a visitor, but as part of the circle, watching the very first stones placed that would one day rise into pyramids. You are safe, unhurried, at home in the spiral of history. And now, quietly we'll cross to chapter 2. Then we will see how these small villages stretched upward and outward, how temples touched the sky, how kings and queens stepped forward with rituals that bound their people together. The story grows taller, but the roots remain the same: maize, time, and a human wish to belong beneath the stars. As the centuries unfurled, those first Maya clearings began to swell with life. You could imagine a slow gathering of stone upon stone, each block carefully shaped, carried, and set in place, not with the roar of machines, but with the rhythm of many hands working together. The jungle would have echoed with steady footsteps, with voices rising in encouragement, with the thud of stones sliding into place. From these early efforts grew the ceremonial platforms and eventually the step pyramids we picture today, not as sudden miracles, but as patient accumulations of care and knowledge. And always, as torches burned at night, the stars above guided the builders' choices. Temples aligned with solstices, stairways pointing toward the rising sun, everything whispering of the universe's rhythm. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see how this architecture was not only about grandeur, but also about belonging. To climb a temple was to retrace the journey from earth to sky. Each step was a prayer, each landing a resting breath in the climb toward the divine. At the top, the wind would carry the smell of resin burning, feathers swaying in ritual costumes, drums low and steady as a heartbeat. The architecture itself was a conversation between human hands and eternal heavens. Picture the city of Nakbi, among the earliest large centers around 1000 to 400 BC. In moonlight, its pyramid loomed above the trees, an early experiment in scale that set the stage for wonders to come. Imagine villagers walking miles to gather here for rituals, carrying food, goods, and offerings. Each visit deepened the sense that these centers were more than villages. They were nodes in a cosmic map, places where heaven and earth brushed against each other. And here's a quiet revelation. The temples, painted in bright reds, yellows, and whites, were not drab stone as we see them now. Their surfaces glowed in sunlight and flickered in firelight, alive with color and story. To stand before one was not to see ruin, but to be immersed in a living canvas. As you breathe deeply now, imagine the faint scent of pigment mixed with lime, the brush strokes layering meaning onto walls, each glyph a key to time and memory. The calendar, too, took form here. The 260-day ritual calendar, the Tsokin, and the 365-day solar calendar, the Hab, worked in interlocking cycles, weaving daily life into cosmic order. A child's name, a harvest date, a ceremony's time, all guided by the spin of these calendars, like two gears meshing to keep existence in balance. Doesn't it soothe you to think of time as a dance rather than a countdown? Each day carrying its own soft personality, its own destiny. Let's turn the lamp lower and picture the daily life inside a growing Maya city. Narrow pathways winding through clusters of houses, the chatter of families, the smoke of cooking fires rising in curls. Cotton cloth dyed with soft blues and reds draped over shoulders, beads clinking gently as people moved. Children played with small clay figurines, imitating the adults around them, laughter echoing against plaster walls. It feels close, doesn't it? As if you could almost reach out and touch the fabric, hear the laughter, taste the roasted maize. Stay close now, because in a moment we'll see how power began to emerge. Leaders were no longer only shamans guiding planting dates. They were kings and queens weaving political authority with sacred duty. Their crowns bore jade, their cloaks shimmered with feathers, but their responsibility was heavy. To embody the cycle of time, to guarantee maize would grow, rain would fall, stars would shine. Every ceremony was a reassurance, not unlike the way I am here to reassure you tonight that you are safe, steady, and part of something larger. And yet, while kings stood at temple tops, life continued below with the same rhythm. Farmers rose at dawn, women tended weaving looms, merchants loaded canoes. The grandeur above never erased the intimacy below. Perhaps this is why Maya civilization endured for so long. Its roots remained in the soil and maize, in families gathered under palm roofs. By the time we reached the pre-classic peak around 400 BC to 250 CE, cities like El Mirador had emerged. El Mirador's pyramid, La Danta, remains one of the largest ever built in the ancient world, taller even than some Egyptian pyramids. Picture it not as ruin, but as mountain, slopes painted, crowned with ritual, visible for miles. The jungle may have hummed with cicadas and night birds, but atop the pyramid, the silence of sky pressed down like a blessing. And here's the gentle thought to carry with you as you drift towards sleep. Each block of those massive pyramids was carried by human hands, step by step, breath by breath. They were not feats of sudden genius, but of patience, of community. The same patience you feel now as your own breath rises and falls, as you let your body rest in the spiral of time. In Chapter 3, we'll walk deeper into the classic period, when cities blossomed into networks, when writing covered walls like woven cloth, when ball courts echoed with ritual games. Stay with me, because the spiral of time is carrying us forward, not to an end, but to the next gentle curve of the story. Now we arrive at the classic period, beginning around 250 CE, the era most people imagine when they hear the word Maya. Cities bloomed like constellations across the lowlands, each one a star with its own orbit of villages, farms, and trade routes. You can picture the view from above, green jungle punctuated by gleaming white plaster temples, plazas opening like bright clearings in the forest. Life here pulsed with ceremony, trade, and daily routine, as rich and textured as the woven textiles draped across shoulders in the evening firelight. Stay close, because here the writing system came into full bloom. Maya glyphs, intricate and alive, appeared on stelae, stairways, codices. Each glyph carried sound and meaning, curves and corners that told stories of kings, gods, and days. Imagine a scribe bent over bark paper codex, brushed steady in torchlight, the faint rustle of fibers beneath ink. The knowledge they preserved was vast. Histories of dynasties, calendars of rituals, predictions of celestial movements. The written word turned time into something tangible, something you could hold in your hands and pass across generations. And here's a quiet twist. For many centuries, the ability to read and write these glyphs was lost. It was only in the 20th century that scholars began to piece them together again. So, when we read them now, we are rejoining a conversation paused for centuries, like sitting down again with an old friend after a long silence. Isn't that soothing? The idea that knowledge waits patiently, never truly gone, only waiting for the right moment to be heard again. Picture the ball courts, too. Rectangular spaces flanked by sloping walls, where players struck a heavy rubber ball with hips and shoulders, never hands or feet. The thud of the ball echoed through plazas, crowds murmuring, drums beating. To the Maya, this was no mere sport, but a ritual reenactment of cosmic battles, of life and death, of sun and darkness. Yet in the hush of evening, when crowds dispersed, the court lay still, the moonlight pooling softly on its stones, the game's echoes fading into lullaby. Let's dim the lamp lower and wander into a Maya home of this period. Walls of plaster gleaming faintly, floors swept clean, mats rolled out for sleep. The family gathers, sharing tamales, sipping cacao. The warm drink, frothed into gentle foam, carries a scent of roasted beans and spice. Children drift toward dreams as parents speak in soft tones, stories of gods and ancestors weaving comfort around them. The room glows faintly from a torch in the corner, shadows breathing against the walls. It feels safe, close, eternal. Stay with me, because soon we'll see how politics and faith intertwined. Kings were not rulers alone. They were mediators with the divine. Their bloodletting rituals, their adornments of jade and feathers, their presence atop temple stairs, all served to reassure the people that the cycle of time was intact, that maize would grow, rain would fall. It was a heavy burden, carried with ceremony and song. But while kings performed these duties, life below carried on with its own rhythm, as steady as your own breath. By the height of the classic period, cities like Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, and Copan shone with splendor, their plazas filled with markets, their temples soared skyward, their walls covered in glyphs. Trade routes tied them together, obsidian blades traveling from one city to another, cacao beans exchanged like currency, feathers bright as sunrise carried carefully in baskets. Imagine walking through such a market. The hum of voices, the clink of goods, the warm scent of roasted maize. And then, as evening fell, the market would quiet, stalls covered, families retreating to homes, the plaza left bathed in moonlight. And here is the soft reassurance. Though dynasties rose and fell, though wars flickered at the edges, the core of Maya life, the maize, the family, the cycle of time, remained unbroken. That continuity is what allows us, tonight, to step into their world not as strangers, but as companions. In Chapter 4, we will wander deeper into the classic cities. tracing their artistry, their astronomy, their understanding of cycles that guided both stars and souls. Stay with me, because each turn of the spiral carries us closer, not to endings, but to deeper layers of belonging. The classic cities invite us deeper, into plazas that feel almost like open-air books. Imagine walking slowly, torch in hand, across stones still warm from the day's sun. The walls around you are carved with glyphs, each curve and corner telling stories of dynasties, of gods, of celestial events. You pause, tracing a line with your eyes, not needing to understand each symbol to feel the weight of meaning. These cities were not just places to live. They were living libraries. Every stairway instilled an inscription in the grand text of time. Stay with me, because in a moment we will climb the steps of an observatory. In cities like Uxmal and Köpen, buildings align not only with sunrises but with the journeys of Venus and the moon. Maya astronomers would watch carefully, night after night, mapping cycles with precision. They knew when Venus would rise as morning star, when it would set as evening star, and these observations shaped rituals, wars, and planting seasons alike. Picture them sitting under a sky so thick with stars that it feels like velvet stitched with jewels, recording each movement in bark paper codices. You can almost hear the brush tip against fiber, the faint scratch of ink drying. And here's a gentle twist. The Maya calculated the length of the solar year more accurately than the Julian calendar used in Europe for centuries. Their understanding of celestial cycles was not primitive but profound, their measurements precise enough to guide them through centuries. Imagine the calm assurance of looking up at the sky and knowing, truly knowing, where each wandering star would be, not with anxiety but with trust. Let's dim the lamp lower and step into a sculptor's workshop. Blocks of limestone wait, smooth and pale, ready to receive images of kings and gods. The sculptor's tool scrapes softly, chips falling like grains of sand. Each figure emerges slowly, a face stern yet kind, a head dressed tall and feathered, glyphs curling at the edges. The sculptor works by torchlight, sweat on brow, concentration steady. And around him, apprentices whisper, learning the art of making stone speak. The workshop hums like a lullaby of creation. Stay close, because artistry was not only in stone, but also in paint. Murals at Bonampak show musicians, dancers, courtiers in bright hues. Though we see faded traces now, once the walls glowed with blues, reds, and yellows, as vivid as dreams. Imagine stepping into a chamber, every surface alive with story, the air heavy with incense. To rest there was to be inside a painting, surrounded on all sides by music and myth. Yet life outside these chambers remained intimate and familiar. Farmers bent over maize fields, women spun cotton, children played at the edge of plazas. The extraordinary and the ordinary coexisted like two hands folded together. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine that beneath all grandeur, the hum of daily life was steady, like your own breathing now? By the height of the classic era, cities were bound by trade and diplomacy, sometimes by rivalry, always by cycles of time. Kings marked great events with rituals of bloodletting, their sacrifice seen as nourishment for the gods. Yet even here, let us soften the picture. The rituals were not scenes of terror, but a solemn trust, acts that reassured the people that balance between worlds was maintained. And here's a reassurance for you. No matter the grandeur, no matter the politics, the Maya placed time itself at the heart of their lives. Each day was part pattern, each season part of a spiral. To live was to belong in this dance. And tonight, you too belong, your breath matching the ancient rhythm, your rest falling into the same spiral that guided them. In Chapter 5, we will step gently into the sacred ball game again, not as spectators, but as participants in meaning. We will hear how rubber and stone, sweat and song, became echoes of creation itself. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral brings us closer to the Maya heart. Now the ball game awaits us, its court long and narrow, flanked by sloping stone walls. The night has settled softly, and you and I can stand at the edge, imagining the players who once moved with strength and grace. The ball, heavy and rubbery, struck with hip and shoulder, echoed with each thud, a sound like a drum resonating through the plaza. This was no simple pastime. It was ritual, myth embodied in motion, a story told not with words but with bodies moving in rhythm. Stay close, because in a moment you'll see why this mattered so deeply. The ball game was a reenactment of the creation story, where twin heroes faced the lords of the underworld. To play was to bring myth alive, to let gods and humans meet in sweat and effort. Each point, each rebound, echoed cosmic struggles. And yet, in the hush after a game, when torches burned low and the crowd dispersed, the court returned to silence. Moonlight fell across the stones, vines rustled at the edges, and the myth itself rested, waiting for the next game. Picture the players before a match, their bodies smeared with paint, belts and padding strapped tight, determination in their eyes. Drums pounded softly, flutes wailed, incense curled upward. The crowd gathered, murmuring in anticipation, children craning to see. And then with a sudden thud, the game began, each movement fluid, each rebound precise. The game was demanding, exhausting, yet it carried the weight of the cosmos. And here's the twist. Beyond ritual, the ball game also served as diplomacy. Rival kings would settle disputes through matches, sparing their people from war. Victories were symbolic, binding, part of the intricate web of Maya politics. So, when we picture the court tonight, we can see it as more than a place of myth. It was also a place of peace where conflict was softened by play. Isn't that a calming thought? That sport could be not division, but harmony? Let's lower the lamp and imagine sitting in the crowd, the air thick with incense and excitement. Beside you, families cheer softly, vendors pass bowls of roasted maize, children nibble at cacao beans. The hum of the crowd feels like the ocean, swelling and falling with each strike of the ball. The night is alive, yet safe, wrapped in shared attention. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll listen to what happens after the game. Musicians play, dancers move into the plaza, torches flare higher. The community gathers not in rivalry, but in celebration. Food is shared, stories told, laughter rises into the night air. The court, which moments before carried the weight of cosmic myth, now becomes a place of joy, of togetherness. And even here, daily life folded around the extraordinary. The players return home, muscles aching, sweat drying, welcomed by families with warm food and soft words. The court returned to stillness, stars wheeling silently above, jungle humming around its edges. The cycle complete, the myth retold, the community at peace. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself standing on the empty court after everyone is gone. The stones are cool beneath your feet, the air heavy with the scent of incense. Moonlight glows on the walls, shadows deepen, and you are alone but not lonely. The court itself seems to hum with memory, holding centuries of games, centuries of prayers. You are part of that memory now, safe within it. In Chapter 6, we will wander from the court to the marketplace, where trade brought feathers, jade, cacao, and obsidian together. Stay with me, because there is comfort in seeing how the Maya connected their world, weaving bonds not only with gods and myths, but also with neighbors across the jungle. The marketplace awaits us now, not in silence, but in a gentle hum that still carries sleep within it. Imagine the soft glow of dawn rising over a Maya city, the plaza filling gradually as merchants arrive. Their sandals scuff against stone, their voices low and steady, carrying greetings as stalls are set. Mats are rolled out, baskets are opened, goods carefully displayed. The marketplace is alive before the sun has fully warmed the air, and you and I are walking there slowly, as though drifting through a dream. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see how this place was more than commerce. It was a thread that bound villages and kingdoms, a place where neighbors and strangers alike exchanged not only goods but stories, news, and bonds of trust. Each object carried meaning. A cacao bean was not just food. It was currency, small and precious, counted out with care. Obsidian blades gleamed darkly, sharp as thought itself, arriving from highland quarries. Jade, polished smooth, glowed green like deep forest shadows. And feathers, bright as sunrise, shimmered in baskets, destined to crown kings and queens. Picture yourself pausing at a stall where a woman pours frothy cacao drink into clay cups. The aroma of roasted beans and spice rises, warm and comforting, the kind of scent that nestles into your memory and stays. She smiles gently, offering you a taste, and the first sip is both bitter and sweet, thick with foam, carrying the richness of the land itself. To drink cacao here is not just refreshment. It is ceremony, a quiet blessing before the day unfolds. Let's dim the lamp lower in our minds, as though watching the marketplace through a softened haze. Around us, merchants call out gently. Children laugh as they chase each other through the crowd. Dogs weave between legs, sniffing curiously. Cloth dyed in blues and reds flutters like flags in a breeze. Pottery shines with painted patterns, and baskets of maize sit golden under the light. The hum of trade is steady, but never harsh. It feels like the low murmur waves on a shore, rhythmic, constant, soothing. And here's a twist you might not expect. Marketplaces were not only places of buying and selling, they were also centers of social life, where people arranged marriages, settled disputes, exchanged news from distant cities. The plaza was not just a market. It was a heart of community, a place where every thread of daily life crossed another. If you think of the temples as connecting humans to gods, then the marketplace connected humans to each other. Both were sacred in their own way, one to the cosmos, the other to the bonds of living together. Stay close now, because in a moment you'll see the role of merchants. Some were travelers who moved goods across vast distances, paddling canoes through jungle rivers, carrying packs along trails. They brought obsidian from far highlands, salt from coastal flats, shells from Caribbean shores. Each journey was long and uncertain, but merchants carried not only goods, they carried connection. Imagine a traveler arriving at the marketplace, his canoe heavy with cacao beans, his cloak dusty from days of walking. He kneels, unfolds baskets, and soon he is surrounded by curious eyes and eager hands. In this exchange, the world feels wider yet still safe, as though distant lands have been folded gently into the palm of your hand. Let's pause and breathe, listening to sounds. The clink of beads strung together, the low hum of voices bargaining kindly, the rustle of cloth as garments are unfolded. Somewhere a musician strums softly on a wooden instrument, his tune weaving through the air like a ribbon. These sounds blend into a lullaby of community, a harmony of daily life. Picture, too, the food. Fresh tortillas warm from the fire, tamales wrapped in leaves, beans simmering in clay pots, squash roasted to sweetness. Fruits glisten in baskets, papayas, guavas, avocados, ripe and fragrant. To walk through this marketplace is to walk through a feast of scents, each one carrying comfort. A traveler could find nourishment. A family could share abundance. A stranger could be welcomed with a meal. Doesn't it soothe you to think of nourishment offered freely? The marketplace not as competition, but as sharing? And here's another gentle surprise. Marketplaces often had designated areas for different goods. One corner for pottery, another for cloth, another for food. Yet these divisions were not barriers, but rhythms, guiding the flow of people like streams converging into a river. To wander through them was to wander through the order of the world, each step leading you from one necessity to another, from one beauty to another. Let's turn the lamp a little lower, softening the scene into dusk. Imagine the marketplace at day's end. Merchants roll their mats, fold their cloth, tie baskets shut. The air, once filled with murmur, now grows quieter. Torches flicker as families gather what they have bought. Children grow drowsy against their parents' shoulders, and the plaza returns to calm. The stones still hold the warmth of the day, but night spreads its cool touch gently. The marketplace, once alive with voices, now hums only with crickets and night birds. Stay with me, because in this moment we see how the marketplace was part of the greater cycle of Maya life. By day it was energy, connection, exchange. By night it rested, waiting for dawn. Just as your own body rises and falls with breath, the plaza rose and fell with life, each cycle returning, dependable, eternal. And here's a reassurance for you. The goods traded here, maize, cacao, feathers, jade, were not luxuries alone. They were threads that held the community together. Maize fed the body, cacao warmed the spirit. Feathers crowned the rulers, jade sanctified the sacred. Every object was more than itself. It was meaning woven into the spiral of existence. As you close your eyes, imagine standing at the center of the empty plaza now. The stars prick the sky, torches are burned low, and the silence is almost total. Yet beneath it, You can feel the memory of the day, the laughter, the scents, the voices, like a heartbeat under stone. You are safe here, part of the same rhythm, resting within it. In Chapter 7, we will leave the marketplace and wander into the artistry of the Maya. Their weaving, their pottery, their murals that turned walls into song. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral brings us into color and texture, into the beauty of hands shaping clay and cloth, into the quiet joy of creation. Now we step from the marketplace into the quieter world of artistry, with a Maya-shaped beauty from earth, plant, and pigment. Imagine walking through a small courtyard as the afternoon sun softens, shadows stretching long across plaster walls. Here, artisans sit with calm focus, their hands steady, their tools familiar as extensions of their own bodies. The hum of creation is slower than the marketplace, but no less alive. Clay, fiber, paint, and stone all wait patiently to be transformed. Stay with me, because in a moment we will kneel beside a potter. The clay he uses is gathered from riverbanks, mixed with water until it feels like cool silk between the fingers. He shapes a vessel with slow precision, palm steady, turning it on a simple stand. Each movement is rhythmic, unhurried, a dance between hand and clay. As you watch, the vessel rises smoothly, its sides symmetrical, its surface gleaming damp in the light. Later it will be polished with stones, painted with slips of red and black, decorated with glyphs or figures of gods and animals. But right now, in this quiet moment, it is simply clay breathing into form. And here is a gentle twist. These vessels were not only for carrying water or food. They were also gifts for ceremonies, offerings placed in tombs, containers for cacao that carried more than drink. They carried status and story. To hold a painted cup was to hold not only nourishment, but meaning. Every swirl of paint was a reminder that beauty could live in the everyday, that sacredness could dwell in something as simple as a drinking vessel. Let's lower the lamp a little and wander now to the weavers. Cotton threads stretch between posts, dyed in colors drawn from plants, insects, and minerals. Indigo blue, cochineal red, earthy yellows and browns, each shade a piece of the land itself. Women sit with looms tied around their waists, bodies swaying gently as their hands pass shuttle through thread, back and forth, back and forth. The sound is soft, almost like rain tapping on leaves. Cloth emerges slowly, patterned with diamonds, zigzags, and step motifs that echo temples and stars. Stay close, because weaving was more than craft. It was language. Each pattern carried meaning. Each combination of color spoke of lineage, village, or ritual. To wear a woven cloth was to carry identity on your shoulders, to wrap yourself in memory and belonging. Picture the comfort of soft fabric against your skin, the gentle weight of tradition woven into every thread. In that feeling, the past and present merge, as they do now while you rest and listen. And here's a revelation. Many of these weaving traditions still live on. In towns across Guatemala and Mexico, Maya descendants weave with the same looms, the same patterns, the same steady rhythm of hands. When you see their work, you are not looking at imitation but continuation, threads stretched across centuries without break. Doesn't it soothe you to know that beauty can endure so quietly, carried hand to hand, loom to loom? Let's pause and breathe, listening to the other sounds of artistry. The scrape of chisel on stone as a sculptor refines a glyph, the hiss of pigment grinding as a painter mixes colors, the crackle of fire as pottery hardens and kills. Each sound is a lullaby creation, small and steady, never hurried. The artisans work with patience because they know beauty unfolds slowly, like time itself. Picture now the murals of Bonampak again, this time not in the moment of viewing, but in the act of painting. Brushes made of animal hair dipped into pigments. Strokes layering figures of musicians, dancers, nobles. The walls glow with story, the air thick with resin smoke, the painters murmuring softly as they work by torchlight. Each figure seems alive, caught mid-motion, yet still. And those centuries have passed. You can almost hear the faint rustle of fabric, the distant note of a drum within the colors. Stay with me, because artistry was not only visual. Music filled the plazas too. Drums of wood and skin, flutes of bone and clay, rattles filled with seeds, each instrument adding to the rhythm of ceremonies. Imagine standing in a temple plaza as the night begins, the sky deepening into indigo. Drums echo steady as a heartbeat. Flutes call like birds, voices rise and chant. The sound washes over you, not loud, but enveloping like waves against shore. It is music made not to perform but to connect, to align human breath with the breath of God's. And then when music quieted, when fires dimmed, the artistry lingered, pottery cooled, murals dried, cloth folded, instruments rested. The city slept, but beauty remained, etched into walls, woven into fabric, painted into vessels. The artisans, though unnamed in most records, were as essential as kings, for they gave the civilization its texture, its color, its voice. Here is a reassurance. The Maya lived surrounded by beauty not as luxury, but as necessity. Art was not separate from life. It was part of eating, dressing, worshiping, resting. To live without beauty was unthinkable, because beauty was how they remembered who they were. As you breathe slowly now, imagine lie on a woven mat in a Maya home. Beside you, a painted cup holds cacao. A cloth pattern with diamonds covers your shoulders. A mural glows faintly on the wall. Outside, the jungle hums. Inside, the family rests. Art surrounds you not as decoration, but as comfort, as reassurance that you belong. You are safe, wrapped in creation. In Chapter 8, we will leave these workshops and homes and step into sacred texts of the Maya, the Popol Vuh, the stories of creation, of hero twins, of gods who shaped the world. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral brings us from beauty into myth, from hands shaping clay to words shaping the cosmos. Now we move gently from the hands of the artisans to the words of the storytellers, from clay and cloth into myth and memory. Imagine yourself seated by a fire in the deep night, the flames flickering low, sparks lifting into sky like tiny stars. Around you, families gather, children leaning against their parents, elders speaking with calm authority. This is not only entertainment. It is the weaving of the world itself. For the Maya, story was not pastime but truth, carried in words that held both history and eternity. And among these stories, the most treasured was the Popol Vuh, the sacred book of creation. Stay with me, because in a moment we will hear how this story begins. The Popol Vuh tells that before the earth was shaped, there was only sky and sea, silence and calm. The gods spoke together, deciding to bring forth land, mountains, rivers, and animals. It is a story of beginnings told not with urgency, but with patience, like breath slowly drawn. Imagine that silence before creation, the stillness of night, and then the gentle sound of water meeting sky as the world awakens. Doesn't it soothe you to think of creation itself as quiet, as gentle as dawn breaking? But here comes the first soft twist. The animals created could not speak the names of the gods. They could sing, they could howl, but they could not pray. And so, they were given their places in forests and rivers, each with its own role, but the gods still desired beings who could carry their words, who could keep time and ritual. The story tells us that the gods shaped humans first from mud, but mud was fragile, crumbling in the rain, dissolving back into the earth. The attempt failed, and so they tried again. Let's turn the lamp lower and listen closely. The gods next shaped humans from wood. These figures stood tall, they multiplied, they walked the earth, yet they were hollow inside. They had no souls, no understanding, no respect for the gods or the cycles of time. They abused the animals, neglected the rituals, lived without gratitude. And so, the story tells the wooden people were destroyed, crushed by jaguars, burned by fire, drowned in floods. Even their grinding stones and cooking pots rose up against them, punishing their ungratefulness. It is a story of consequence, but told as part of the spiral. Lessons repeated until learned. Stay with me, because here is where the story takes its gentle turn toward the maize, the heart of Maya life. After these failed creations, the gods found the maize plant. White and yellow kernels, ground and shaped, became the flesh of the true humans. The first real people, the ancestors of the Maya, were born from maize dough, given breath, given heart, given purpose. To eat maize was to sustain not only the body but the soul. Every tortilla, every tamale, every sip of atole was communion with creation itself. Isn't it comforting to think that food could be sacred, that each meal was a reminder of origin, a quiet prayer in every bite? Picture yourself now at dawn, the first rays of sun breaking through the jungle canopy. A woman grinds maize on a stone, her movement steady, rhythmic, like music. The sound of grinding is a heartbeat of the household, the rhythm of creation repeated daily. Children stir from sleep. The air fills with the smell of cooking, and the gods are honored not through grand temples, but through the simple act of nourishment. In this way, myth lives not only in stories, but in kitchens, in fields, in every breath. And here is another gentle revelation. The Popol Vuh tells of the hero twins, Hunahpu and Palenque, who face the lords of Xibalba, the underworld. Their story is one of courage and wit, but also of cycles, death leading back into life, endings flowing into beginnings. The twins are summoned to the underworld to play the ball game against the lords. They face trials of darkness, trials of fire, trials of jaguars. Through cleverness and persistence, they endure. In the end, one twin is sacrificed, but from his sacrifice, maize grows. Life renewed. Death in the Maya vision was never an end but a turn in the spiral. Let's lower the lamp further and imagine yourself hearing this story by firelight. The voice of the storyteller rises and falls gently, carrying suspense without fear, wisdom without harshness. The children lean closer, wide-eyed, but safe. The fire crackles softly. The night hums beyond the circle of light, and the story carries everyone into a shared dream. It is not a tale to frighten, but to remind. Life is cyclical. Death is part renewal. Gratitude keeps balance. Stay close, because in a moment you'll see how these myths connected to the rituals in temples, to the ball games and plazas, to the weaving of cloth. Every act of daily life echoed the Popol Vuh. To grind maize was to honor creation. To weave was to reflect the patterns of the gods. To play the ball game was to reenact the trials of the twins in Xibalba. Myth was not separate from life. It was life seen clearly. And here is a soft reassurance for you. Even now, centuries later, the Popol Vuh still whispers through the voices of Maya descendants. Though the original manuscripts were hidden and rewritten under colonial pressure, the story endured, carried in memory, spoken quietly in homes. It could not be erased because it was not only words, it was breath, food, ritual, belonging. To hear it now is to join a chain of listening that stretches unbroken through time. Imagine as you rest that you are part of that chain. The firelight flickers on your face. The storyteller's voice flows around you, and you are held within a circle of listeners stretching across centuries. You are safe here, wrapped in story, part of the spiral of words that created the world and still sustain it. In Chapter 9, we will step from myth into ceremony, seeing how the Maya honor their gods and ancestors in rituals that blended music, incense, and time itself. Stay with me, because the spiral continues, carrying us in the words of the Popol Vuh into the lived devotion of temples and plazas. Now we move from the world of myth into the lived reality of ceremony, where the Maya honor gods, ancestors, and eternal cycles of time. Imagine yourself stepping slowly into a great plaza just before dawn. The air is still cool, the sky pale with the first suggestion of light, and torches flicker against the rising mist. People gather quietly, carrying offerings, bowls of maize, bundles of flowers, cups of cacao. Priests in long garments move steadily, their faces calm, their steps deliberate. The smell of copal resin begins to fill the air as it burns, smoke curling skyward like a bridge between earth and heaven. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see that ceremony was more than spectacle. It was reassurance, a reminder that the cycles continued, that the gods had not forgotten humanity. Rituals marked planting and harvest, birth and deaths, victories and alliances. Each act was part of the great spiral of time, reaffirming the balance between worlds. To watch a ceremony was not to be entertained, but to be comforted, to know the universe was still in order. Picture a priest standing atop a pyramid, torchlight shimmering against painted walls. His hands lift a bowl of maize gruel, his voice rising in chant. The words flow rhythmically, like water, carrying prayers of the gods of rain, sun, and maize. Below, the people listen in silence, their breaths rising together, their bodies swaying gently to the cadence. The ritual is both cosmic and intimate, as if the stars themselves are leaning closer to hear. And here is a gentle twist. Many Maya rituals involve bloodletting, but not in the way we might imagine with fear. Kings and queens would pierce their tongues or skin, offering drops of their own blood onto bark paper, then burning it so that smoke carried their essence upward to them. This was not violence, but gift, a way to nourish the gods as the gods nourished them. The act was solemn, controlled, part of the exchange that kept the spiral turning. In the hush of the plaza, the crackle of burning resin and paper mingled, the rising smoke a thread tying human life to divine presence. Let's lower the lamp and focus on the details. Musicians play drums carved from hollow logs, the skin stretched tight, their rhythms steady and deep. Flutes call softly, imitating the songs of birds. Shell trumpets sound low notes that echo like wind in caves. The music does not rush. It pulses, slow and enveloping, drawing everyone into trance. You can almost hear it now. The steady thump, the distant wail, the hum of voices layered in chant. The ceremony is as much about sound as sight, as much about rhythm as movement. Stay close, because in a moment you'll see the roll of incense. Copal resin, gathered from trees, smolders in clay burners, releasing a sweet, pine-like scent. The smoke drifts in ribbons, rising and curling, softening the edges of everything it touches. In the glow of torches, the smoke appears almost alive, figures forming and dissolving, gods themselves imagined within its patterns. To breathe it in is to step into the sacred, to feel the veil between worlds thinning. Even now, as you breathe slowly in your own quiet space, imagine the calming scent, the way it lingers in the air, the way it turns the ordinary into something eternal. Picture the offerings. Bowls of food, tamales, beans, cacao, placed carefully at temple bases. Jade beads glinting softly. Feathers laid out like rays of the sun, shells polished to a gentle shine. Each item chosen with care, not for extravagance alone, but for meaning. Jade symbolized life. Feathers the sky, cacao the richness of the earth. To give was to thank, to place beauty back into the cycle from which it came. The plaza, filled with these offerings, became not only a space of stone, but a garden of gratitude. And here is another revelation. Ceremonies were not limited to temples. In homes, families also offered food, burned incense, prayed quietly to household gods. A small altar might stand in the corner, decorated with flowers or painted figurines. The sacred was not distant, but woven into daily life. To light a candle, to set aside a portion of food, to whisper a prayer. These small acts mirror the grandeur of pyramids. Ceremony was both public and private, vast and intimate, shared by kings and children alike. Let's pause and breathe as we imagine the climax of a great festival. The sun has risen fully now, shining on painted walls and carved steely. Dancers move into the plaza, their costumes shimmering with feathers and beads, their steps precise, their bodies swaying in time with drums. The crowd hums softly, swaying too, as if all are joined in a single rhythm. The dance tells stories of gods, of creation, of cycles returning. It is beauty alive in motion, ritual embodied in a human form. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll step into the meaning of time itself within these ceremonies. The Maya understood time as cycles, and rituals marked the turning of these cycles. The end of a 20-year cadence was celebrated with ceremonies lasting days, filled with music, offerings, and feasting. To mark such a passage was not to fear time passing, but to honor its return, to rejoice that the spiral continued. Imagine being part of such a celebration, surrounded by thousands, yet feeling the unity of one heartbeat, one breath. And here's a reassurance. These rituals were not harsh intrusions into daily life, but rhythms that gave it shape. They were pauses like deep breaths, moments when community came together to remember who they were and where they belonged. Just as you pause now, sinking deeper into rest. So the Maya pause in their ceremonies, aligning themselves with the eternal. Picture the end of the festival. The torches are extinguished, the dancers rest, the musicians set down their drums. Families gather the children, carrying them home, their heads heavy with sleep. The plaza empties slowly, the smoke of incense still hanging in the air. The temples stand tall against the sky, silent now, but filled with memory. The gods have been honored. the cycle reaffirmed, and the people can rest knowing balance has been restored. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself walking away from the plaza, the sound of crickets returning, the jungle rustling softly. You feel calm, carried by the same assurance that held the Maya, that life is part cycles, that ceremonies keep balance, that every offering, every prayer, every act of gratitude matters. You are safe in this spiral, at home in this rhythm. In Chapter 10, we will step into palaces and daily routines of the Maya elite, seeing how rulers and nobles lived not in luxury alone, but in responsibility, weaving politics and faith together. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral reveals how leadership was both privilege and burden, carried with ritual care. Now, gently, we walk from the plazas filled with incense and chanting into the quieter, more enclosed world of Maya palaces. These were not palaces in the sense of golden thrones and endless treasure, but stone complexes built with care, where rulers and nobles lived, governed, and carried the burden of guiding their people. Imagine stepping through a wide doorway framed with carved glyphs. The air inside is cooler than the sunlit plaza, shaded by thick walls of limestone, plastered smooth and painted with colors that have long since faded but once glowed. Here, life was slower, steadier, filled with ritual, responsibility, and the rhythm of daily tasks. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see that for the Maya elite, power was less about luxury than about duty. A ruler was expected to be both king and priest, politician and astronomer, mediator between gods and people. His or her clothing reflected this responsibility. Cotton robes dyed deep with plant pigments, adorned with jade beads that caught the light like drops of forest dew. Headdresses rose tall with quetzal feathers, shimmering green in the sun, their weight as much symbolic as physical. To wear such attire was not vanity but service. It signaled the role of holding balance between the human and the divine. Picture a noble court gathered in the palace courtyard. Courtiers lean against carved benches. Scribes sit cross-legged with bark paper codices on their laps. Attendants carry bowls of cacao. The murmur of conversation flows like a stream, punctuated by soft laughter, by the sound of a flute from a nearby chamber. The palace hums with quiet activity, not hurried but constant, the rhythm of governance blending seamlessly into the rhythm of daily life. And here is a gentle twist. While we might imagine rulers distant from ordinary people, in Maya society, the connection was essential. Rulers performed rituals not for themselves, but on behalf of their entire community. Their health, their visions, their ability to interpret signs were believed to influence crops, rainfall, and cosmic balance. A king was not simply obeyed. He was trusted to be the anchor of the spiral. This was not power for power's sake. It was responsibility woven deeply into belief. Let's lower the lamp a little and look closer at the details of daily palace life. Meals were shared, not in excess but in refinement. Tortillas fresh from the hearth, stews flavored with chili and herbs, cacao frothed into rich drinks. Scribes read aloud histories written in glyphs, ensuring memory was never lost. Musicians practiced soft tunes in shaded rooms, their flutes echoing gently. Weavers worked in side courtyards, their looms producing garments patterned with symbols of lineage. The palace was a living heart of culture, where every sound, scent, and gesture reinforced identity. Stay close, because in a moment we will meet the scribes more carefully. Among the nobles, scribes held honored positions, keepers of knowledge. They wrote in folded codices, painted with fine brushes, recording rituals, dynasties, astronomical calculations. Imagine a scribe bent over his work in a cool chamber, the torchlight flickering, his hand steady. The pages he fills are not for him alone, but for generations to come. Each glyph carries meaning, each line a promise that memory will endure. The palace walls themselves became books. Every stela, every carving, a line in the ongoing story of the city. And here's the reassurance. Though the names of many scribes are lost, their voices still reach us today through the glyphs that survive. Their patience, their care, their artistry ensure that we can sit here now, thousands of years later, and feel connected to their world. Isn't it soothing to think that memory can cross such distances, waiting quietly until someone leans close to listen again? Let's pause now in the private chambers of the palace. A noble woman sits with attendants, her hair long and dark, woven with threads of jade beads. She adjusts her hupil, a woven garment patterned with diamonds and step designs, each line carrying story. Beside her, attendants grind cacao, pour into cups, and fan the air gently. Children play with small figurines at her feet, their laughter mingling with the rustle of cloth. Life here is refined but not removed. It mirrors a marketplace in the village, only framed by stone walls and softened by ritual. Stay with me, because the palaces were not only homes but centers of diplomacy. Envoys from other cities arrived, bearing gifts of feathers, shells, and food. In shaded courtyards, rulers and ambassadors spoke in calm tones, sipping cacao, exchanging not only goods but alliances. These meetings were framed with ritual, each gesture deliberate, each word woven into the fabric of politics. Imagine the hush of such a gathering, the stillness before words were spoken, the way every movement carried meaning. The palace was as much a stage for relationships as the ball court was for games. And here's a quiet revelation. Leadership was a burden as much as an honor. Rulers carried the weight of their people's survival. Droughts, floods, failed crops, all were seen as reflections of the ruler's ability to maintain cosmic balance. When maize grew tall, when rains fell in season, the ruler was praised. But when balance faltered, the ruler carried the blame, sometimes even paying with exile or life. To sit upon the throne was to sit upon the sharp edge of expectation, a seat cushioned not with luxury, but with responsibility. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the palace at night. The torches burn low. Shadows stretch long across painted walls. In one chamber, a ruler prays quietly, kneeling before an altar adorned with jade and flowers. Outside, the jungle hums, stars wheel above, and the city sleeps. Inside, the ruler whispers petitions to the gods, asking for rain, for fertility, for peace. The palace is not silent, but hushed, as though listening to the prayers, as though holding its breath with him. And here's a comfort for you. Even the mightiest of rulers sought reassurance. Even the greatest palaces relied on faith and rhythm to endure. Their strength was not isolation but connection, to gods, to people, to cycles of time. As you rest, you can feel that same reassurance. That connection is what sustains, that belonging is what steadies, that no one carries their burden alone. In the morning, the palace comes alive again. Courtyards fill with chatter, kitchens with the smell of cooking, scribes unroll codices, musicians tune instruments. Life flows back into walls, as it always does, as it always will. The palace is not frozen in grandeur, but pulsing with ordinary moments wrapped in extraordinary meaning. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself walking to the palace one last time. Your hand brushes the cool plaster. Your steps echo softly against the stone floors. You feel the weight of responsibility, the calm of ritual, the warmth of community. You are safe here, part of the rhythm, walking gently in a place where power was duty and daily life was sacred. In Chapter 11, we will step outside these palaces and walk into the wider landscape of Maya cities, how they were laid out, how plazas and causeways connected communities, how the very shape of their cities reflected their vision of the universe. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral carries us from chambers into streets, from palaces into the living body of the city itself. Now we step quietly out of the palace chambers and into the open embrace of the city itself. Imagine the way the air changes as you leave the shaded cool of plaster walls and walk into sunlight spilling across wide plazas. The stone beneath your feet is warm. The sound of distant voices drifts toward you, and the city breathes like a living being, its avenues and causeways of veins that connect one part to another. Maya cities were not accidental clusters of buildings, but carefully planned landscapes, each aligned with the heavens, each shaped to mirror the order of the universe. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see how the very layout of these cities was a form of story. At their centers rose the temples and pyramids, tall as mountains, their stairways pointing skyward, their plazas open like the heart of a body, radiating outward with the palaces, the markets, the ball courts, the homes of nobles and commoners alike. And beyond stretched the causeways, raised stone roads, white with plaster, gleaming in the sun, connecting one plaza to another, one temple to the next. To walk these causeways was not just a travel, but to participate in a ritual path, each step part of the city's rhythm. Picture the city of Tikal, its towers rising above the jungle canopy. From afar, the temples appear like peaks emerging from a sea of green. To walk its plazas was to stand in the shadow of giants, yet to feel cradled by them at the same time. Imagine yourself there. The sound of sandals against stone, the smell of incense drifting on the breeze, the laughter of children echoing as they run across the wide plaza. The city feels vast, yet alive with intimacy. And here is a gentle twist. The Maya did not separate the sacred from the ordinary. Every plaza was both a civic space and a holy one. A marketplace was not merely for goods, but also for community and alignment with cycles. A ball court was not simply for games, but for myth retold in movement. Even the streets themselves, the white causeways, were sacred paths, veins of ritual threading through stone and jungle. To live in a Maya city was to live in a place where heaven and earth were woven together. Let's lower the lamp in our minds and notice the details. Along the plazas, steely rise, tall stone slabs carved with images of rulers, glyphs marking dates and deeds. Their surfaces still carry the grooves of chisels, though softened by centuries of rain. To walk among them is to walk among storytellers who speak without words. Imagine running your hand along a carved glyph, feeling the curve of a line, the corner of a square. It is as though the stone itself whispers memory, steady and calm. Stay close, because the houses of common families also shape the city. Modest structures of wattle and daub, with thatched roofs and packed earth floors, clustered in neighborhoods beyond the plazas. Smoke from hearth fires rose in the mornings, mingling with a larger scent of incense and resin from temples. Chickens clucked softly, dogs patted the edges, children played with clay toys while mothers spun cotton. These homes were not grand, yet they were the breath of the city, its daily heartbeat. The extraordinary temples could not stand without the ordinary rhythm of family life surrounding them. And here is another revelation. Water was at the heart of these cities. In places like Tikal, where no rivers flowed, the Maya built reservoirs, great basins lined with plaster, capturing rain to sustain thousands. These reservoirs were not hidden but central, reflecting the sky like mirrors. To drink from them was to drink the sky itself, to be reminded daily of the bond between water, people, and gods. Imagine standing at the edge of such a reservoir, the surface still in the early morning, reflecting clouds drifting gently above. The city was nourished not only by stone but by water held close, cared for as treasure. Let's pause and breathe as we imagine walking down a causeway. The white plaster underfoot gleams faintly even in moonlight, guiding your steps without need for torch. Along the sides, torches flicker in niches, their smoke curling upward. Ahead, a temple rises dark against a star-filled sky. You walk slowly, each step steady, the silence broken only by the hum of insects and the rustle of leaves. It feels like a dream, a path between earth and stars, a reminder that the city itself is designed to guide both body and spirit. Stay with me, because in a moment we will visit Copen, where artistry in stone reached its peak. There, stairways were carved with thousands of glyphs, recording dynasties' rituals and myths. Imagine climbing slowly, your hand brushing each carved block, each one a word in the longest text ever carved in stone. The stairway is not only a path upward, but a book under your feet, carrying you from one line to the next. To climb is to read is to walk, and the act of movement becomes ceremony. And here's the reassurance. Maya cities were not chaotic, not random. They were built to mirror cosmos, to orient human life with celestial cycles. Temples aligned with solstices, palaces with cardinal directions, causeways with ritual pathways. To live in such a city was to wake each day knowing your life was placed within the pattern of the stars. Doesn't it soothe you to imagine your own life as part of such an ordered whole, your breath aligned with cycles older than memory? Let's dim the lamp further and picture the city at dusk. The marketplace quiets. Families gather for meals. Smoke rises from hearths. The plazas empty of crowds. The temples glow with last light. In neighborhoods, dogs curl near doorways. Children settle on mats. Storytellers' voices rise softly. From the palace, faint music drifts, the low thump of a drum, the distant call of a flute. Overhead, the stars emerge one by one, mirrored in reservoirs below. The city breathes out, settling into rest, a giant organism lulled by night. Stay close, because the Maya cities were not only physical but also symbolic. To walk their streets was to walk through layers of meaning. The underworld in their caves, the middle world in their plazas, the heavens in their temple tops. The entire cosmos was folded into stone, each layer present in the daily lives of the people. You and I, walking these streets of imagination, are stepping through a model of the universe, safe within its embrace. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself pausing in the plaza, the moon high above, the temples rising around you like guardians. The stones are cool beneath your feet, the air fragrant with the last traces of incense. You feel both small and infinite, a single figure within a vast spiral that has no end. The city does not overwhelm. It comforts, holding you like a cradle of stone and sky. In Chapter 12, we will leave the shape of the city and look more closely at the Maya understanding of time itself. Their calendars, their cycles, their vision of eternity that guided every ceremony and every step. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral carries us from streets of stone into the vastness of cosmic rhythm. Time, to the Maya, was not a line with a beginning and an end. It was a spiral, a rhythm, a cycle that turned endlessly, like the slow breathing of a universe itself. Imagine sitting beneath a temple on a warm night, the sky full of stars, each one shining with quiet constancy. The people who lived here did not see random lights. They saw stories, guides, and calendars written above them. For them, every star's path, every rising of Venus, every shift of the moon was part of a pattern that repeated, steady as breath. To live was to step into that pattern, not to race against it. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll explore the calendars the Maya built to hold these cycles. There were two main ones: the Tzolk'in, a 260-day sacred calendar, and the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar. Alone, each carried meaning, but together, interlocked like gears, they formed a larger cycle called a calendar round, lasting 52 solar years. To the Maya, this was not merely arithmetic. It was life itself, woven into ritual, planting, naming, and prophecy. Imagine two wheels turning, their teeth meshing, carrying days forward in harmony. Every date carried a personality. Every day had a spirit, and to be born on a certain day was to inherit its character. Doesn't it soothe you to think that each moment could be seen as meaningful, each day a companion rather than just a number? Picture the Tzolk'in in practice. Priests consulting its cycle to choose a child's name, to determine the best days for planting maize, to mark when ceremonies should be held. The numbers 1 through 13 moved alongside 20 named days, creating the 260-day rhythm. It was like a soft song, repeating, never hurried, always in motion. Each day was more than a sunrise. It was an identity, a friend to be greeted, a guide to be respected. And here is a gentle twist. While the Tzolk'in carried the sacred rhythm, the Hab followed the solar year, 18 months of 20 days each, plus a short 5-day period at the end, called the Wayeb. The Wayeb was seen as a time outside order, when boundaries thinned, when care was needed. People stayed close to home, burned incense, and waited gently for the new year to begin. Even the gaps in the cycle were held with ritual, reminding everyone that pause was as necessary as motion. Isn't that comforting? That even uncertainty was folded safely into pattern, acknowledged and honored rather than feared? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and imagine the turning of a calendar round. 52 years, the span of a lifetime for many. When one round ended, it was as though the world was renewed. Ceremonies marked the occasion with fire, offerings, and song. People felt reassured that the cycles would continue, that the spiral still held them. To know time in this way was to be free of the fear of endings, to rest in the knowledge that all things returned. Stay close, because in a moment we'll touch the long count, the calendar that stretched far beyond human lives. Using cycles of backtons, each lasting 144,000 days, the Maya charted dates that spanned thousands of years. It was this system that led to the famous misunderstanding about 2012, when some thought the Maya predicted the end of the world. But the truth is gentler. The end of a Bacton was not the end of existence. It was simply the close of one great cycle and the beginning of another, like the turning of a page. To the Maya, time never stopped. It flowed endlessly, spiraling outward, always returning. Imagine a scribe carving a date into stone, 9.12.2.0.16, or another precise count. His hand is steady, his focus absolute, because he knows this number fixes a moment forever, like anchoring a bead on a necklace of eternity. Even now, we can read those dates. We can stand before the stone and know exactly when an event happened, centuries or millennia ago. Isn't it soothing to think that time can be so carefully tended, preserved with such patience, that you and I can touch it still? Let's pause and breathe, picturing the role of astronomers in this rhythm. Night after night, they climb temple steps, watching the heavens. They track the path of Venus, knowing its cycle of 584 days with astonishing accuracy. They charted eclipses, predicted their return, aligning rituals with these celestial rhythms. Their work was not frantic calculation, but patient watching, trusting that the sky would reveal itself. To look at the stars was to see the God handwriting clear and steady. And here is another revelation. The Maya did not separate the practical from the sacred. Time guided when to plant maize, when to harvest, when to wage war, when to marry. It was as useful as it was holy, as daily as it was eternal. Farmers looked to the same calendars as kings. Mothers trusted the same cycles as priests. The spiral embraced everyone, from palace to village, from temple to hearth. Let's turn the lamp lower and imagine the feeling of living within such a system. Each morning, you would wake knowing the day had a name, a character, a place in the cycle. Each ceremony reaffirmed your belonging. Each festival reassured you that you were walking in step with eternity. Even in uncertainty, there was rhythm. Even in endings, there was return. To live this way was to live without the fear of time running out. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll imagine the turn of a great cycle, a Bacton's end. Fires are lit in plazas. Incense burns thick in the air. Voices rise and chant. The community gathers, heart steady, eyes lifted to the stars. They are not afraid. They are grateful, celebrating the return of the spiral. Children watch with wide eyes. Elders smile with quiet understanding. The night is filled with light, the air with song, the people with reassurance. The new cycle begins as gently as the old one ended. And here's a comfort for you. The Maya vision of time offers us a way to rest. Instead of fearing the ticking of clock, we can imagine ourselves in a spiral. Each breath a return, each sleep a renewal, each morning a gentle beginning again. You are safe in this rhythm, part of the cycle that holds all things. As you breathe slowly now, imagine standing on a temple stair at night. The sky above is wide and endless, stars shimmering, Venus bright on the horizon. Below, the city sleeps, its plazas quiet, its causeways glowing faintly in moonlight. You feel the cycles turning, the spiral carrying you, the reassurance that time does not end but returns. Always, always, you rest within that spiral, safe, unhurried, eternal. In Chapter 13, we will leave the cycles of time and step into the world of agriculture, the fields of maize, the tending of beans and squash, the daily labor that sustained everything. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral will take us from the heavens back to the soil, where life begins anew. From the stars and spirals of time, we return now to the soil, to the earth beneath bare feet, to the fields that fed and sustained the Maya for centuries. Imagine walking at dawn along a narrow path bordered by tall maize stalks. The air is cool and moist, the leaves glisten with dew, and every rustle sounds like a gentle whisper. Birds call softly in the distance, their songs blending with the steady hum of insects. This is the beginning of the Maya day, not in temples or palaces, but here in the fields where life is tended quietly with patience. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll see how maize was more than food. It was life itself. The Popol Vuh tells us that humans were created from maize dough, their flesh made of kernels, their blood from its juice. To plant maize was not simply to cultivate a crop. It was to renew humanity, to honor the very material of existence. Every stalk that rose from the earth was a sibling, every harvest a reaffirmation of life's continuity. To eat was to remember, to live was to give thanks. Picture a family working together in a milpa, the traditional Maya field. The father clears brush with steady rhythm, his stone-bladed tool slicing through vines. The mother scatters seeds with careful hands, her shawl wrapped snugly against her shoulders. Children follow, carrying gourds of water, chasing each other between the rows, laughter ringing like small bells. Dogs trot along at their heels, tails wagging. This is not labor in isolation. It is community, rhythm, and song. And here is a gentle twist. The Maya did not plant maize alone. They cultivated the three sisters, maize, beans, and squash, together in the same field. Maize grew tall, offering stalks for beans to climb. Beans returned nitrogen to the soil, feeding the maize. Squash spread broadleaf of the ground, shading roots and holding moisture. Three crops in harmony, sustaining one another, sustaining the people. Isn't it soothing to think of growth as cooperation, of nourishment as a circle where each element helps the other? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and notice the textures of the fields. Maize stalks rustle in the breeze, their tassels golden in the sun. Squash blossoms glow bright, yellow against the earth. Beans twine upward, their pods rattling softly. The air smells of damp soil and green leaves, alive with the fragrance of growth. When rain comes, the drops patter on broad squash leaves, trickling down to nourish the roots. The entire field becomes a living song of sustenance. Stay close, because the Maya were not only farmers but careful stewards of land. They built terraces on hillsides, preventing erosion and guiding water. They dug canals in lowlands, channeling floods into reservoirs, creating fertile ground for planting. In swamps, they raised chinampas, fields of soil heaped on platforms, floating gardens that turned marsh into abundance. Every landscape was adapted, shaped with respect, so that it yielded without being exhausted. Farming was not conquest, but conversation with the land. And here is another revelation. Agriculture was guided by the calendar cycles we saw before. Priests read the days to know when to plant, when to harvest, when to ask the gods for rain. Rituals were woven into farming, as natural as the rains themselves. Before planting, offerings of maize dough were placed in the soil. At harvest, the first ears were given back to the gods before any were eaten. Farming was never merely practical. It was sacred, a rhythm between humanity and divinity. Let's pause and imagine a harvest day. The sun is warm but not harsh. The air alive with the scent of ripe maize. Families move through fields, cutting stalks, gathering ears, piling them into baskets. Children run to and fro, carrying small loads, their laughter echoing. Women sing as they work, voices blending into a soft chorus that drifts across the fields. By evening, the harvest is brought home, stacked in storage bins, the community feasting together in gratitude. The air smells of roasting maize, beans simmering, squash baked sweet. Every bite is both nourishment and prayer. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll enter the Maya kitchen, where maize was transformed daily into the food that sustained life. Women ground kernels on stone metates, their rhythmic motion steady, like the beating of a drum. The sound carried through households at dawn, a soft percussion that marked the start of each day. Tortillas were patted thin, cooked on clay griddles, their smell filling the air. Tamales steamed in leaves, a toll warmed in clay pots. Every dish was simple yet profound, each one tying the eater back to the myth of creation. And here is a reassurance. In these meals, everyone was included. Nobles drank cacao from painted vessels, yes, but they also ate tortillas and beans, the same foods as farmers. The common diet was shared across the spectrum of society, binding people together. Maize was the great equalizer, reminding all that they were made of the same flesh, that their lives rose from the same soil. To eat was to belong, to be part of the same great family. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the fields at dusk. The work is done, the basket's full, the fire's lit at home. In the fields, the stalks stand quiet now, leaves rustling softly in the night breeze. Fireflies blink among them, their lights twinkling like stars brought down to earth. The families sit around hearths, eating, talking, resting. Smoke curls into the sky, mingling with the scent of roasting food. The fields rest too, waiting for the next cycle, patient, eternal. Stay close, because agriculture shaped not only daily life, but also the architecture of cities. Temples were built to honor maize gods, plazas decorated with images of stalks and kernels. Festivals marked the planting and harvest, entire communities dancing, feasting, and praying together. Maize was more than crop. It was identity, woven into art, into ritual, into memory. Even today, Maya communities bless the fields, offer thanks for harvest, and see themselves as children of maize. As you breathe slowly now, imagine lying in a field of tall maize at night. The stalks sway gently above you, their leaves whispering like lullabies. The stars shine through the gaps. The earth is warm beneath your body, and you feel safe, cradled by the very plants that gave life. You are not separate. You are part of the field, part of the harvest, part of the story. You are at home in the spiral of soil and seed, growth and return. In Chapter 14, we will step into the world of Maya trade and travel, seeing how canoes slipped along rivers, how trails wound through jungle, how goods and stories move between cities. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral carries us from rooted fields to flowing waters, from still earth to the gentle movement of journeys. From the fields where maize grew tall and steady, we now follow the paths that led outward, where people carried not only baskets of goods but stories, alliances, and dreams. Imagine yourself at the edge of a wide river at dawn. The mist rises gently, the water glows soft with first light, and canoes carved from single logs rest against the bank. Merchants move quietly, loading them with baskets of cacao, bundles of cotton cloth, and gleaming obsidian blades. The sound of water against wood is steady, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Trade, for the Maya, was not only about exchange. It was the pulse that connected distant lands, weaving communities together like threads in a great fabric. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see that Maya trade stretched far beyond what we might imagine. Along jungle trails, along rivers, and even across the sea, goods moved steadily, carried on the shoulders of porters, paddled by hands through water, bartered in plazas. Salt from coastal flats traveled inland. Obsidian from highland quarries traveled far across the lowlands. Jade gleamed from Guatemala's valleys. Turquoise arrived from the far north, and feathers of quetzal shimmered like living emeralds. Each object carried not only beauty but distance, a piece of another world folded gently into the marketplace. Picture a caravan of merchants walking single file along a jungle path. Each man carries a pack strapped to his forehead with a tumpline, his feet steady on the earth. Birds call in the trees, monkeys rustle above, insects buzz steadily. The trail is narrow but well-worn, and the merchants walk with patience, their steps measured, their voices soft. At night, they rest in hammocks strung between trees, fires crackling low, stories shared under glow of stars. Trade was not hurried but steady, like the turning of the calendar, like the slow growth of maize. And here is a gentle twist. Trade was not only about goods, it was also about knowledge, news, and alliances. Merchants carried messages between rulers, arranged marriages, spread stories of distant lands. To meet a merchant was to hear of other cities, of festivals, of new songs and new patterns of weaving. They were not only carriers of baskets, but carriers of connection. Isn't it soothing to think of journeys as more than distance, of roads as threads that tie not only places but hearts together? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and step onto a canoe. The merchants push off from the bank, paddles dipping into water with a soft splash. The current carries us forward, the jungle rising dense on both sides. Parrots squawk overhead. Crocodiles slide into the water. Fish dart beneath the surface. The canoe glides steadily, its bow cutting through ripples. The river is not an obstacle but a road, a ribbon of life leading from one world to another. Stay close, because the Maya were also seafarers. Along the Caribbean coast, canoes large enough to hold dozens of men paddle between ports, carrying goods along turquoise waters. Spanish chroniclers, arriving centuries later, were astonished by the size of these trading fleets, their canoes loaded with cacao, honey, salt, and cloth. Imagine the sight, a line of canoes gliding across the sea at dawn, paddlers moving in unison, the horizon glowing pink and gold. The sea was no barrier. It was an open path, shimmering and alive. And here is another revelation. Trade routes connected the Maya not only to each other but to distant peoples. Turquoise traveled from what is now the American Southwest, gold from Central America, obsidian and jade flowing in both directions. Ideas, too, traveled. Styles of art, ways of building, even rituals and beliefs. The Maya were not isolated, but deeply woven into the greater tapestry of the ancient world. To live in their cities was to live at crossroads, where goods and thoughts moved as freely as rivers. Let's pause and imagine the marketplace at the end of a long journey. Merchants unload baskets of cacao beans, laying them out carefully. Women unroll textiles, their colors bright against the stone. Obsidian blades catch the sunlight. Jade beads glow like drops of water. Children peer curiously at shells from the coast, turning them in their hands. The air hums with voices, with bargaining, with laughter. The goods carry not only value but wonder. Each one a reminder that the world is larger than a single village, larger than a single city. Stay with me, because in a moment we'll see how trade also wove into ritual. Cacao, carried long distances, became the drink of ceremony. Jade, polished and shaped, became offerings for gods. Feathers, shimmering with green and blue, adorned headdresses worn in sacred dances. Trade was not only economic, it was spiritual. Each journey a step in the cycle of reciprocity, each exchange part of honoring the balance between worlds. And here is the reassurance. The Maya did not separate movement from meaning. To walk a trail, to paddle a canoe, to carry a basket, these were sacred acts connecting one community to another, one life to another. Journeys were not hurried but purposeful, not dangerous but woven into trust. To imagine yourself walking with them now is to feel that same reassurance. Each step steady, each path leading to connection, each journey safe within the spiral. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the trail at night. The merchants sit around a fire, their packs resting nearby. They eat tortillas warmed in the embers, drink from gourds of water, speak softly of their families and their hopes. Above, the stars will slowly, the same stars that guide their steps by day and their dreams by night. The jungle hums, the fire crackles, and sleep comes gently. Tomorrow they will walk again, but tonight they rest, part of the rhythm of journey and pause. Stay close, because the Maya also honored travelers with hospitality. Along routes, rest stops and way stations offered shelter. Families welcomed merchants into their homes, sharing food, offering hammocks, listening to their stories. Travel was not lonely, but threaded with kindness, with trust that a stranger carried not threat, but connection. Isn't it comforting to imagine a world where every road led to welcome, where every journey carried a promise of rest and belonging? As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself sitting in a canoe at sunset. The water glows orange and pink, the paddler's movement steady and sure. The horizon stretches wide, but you feel no fear, only calm, only connection. The canoe carries you safely. The river or sea holds you gently, and you are part of the flow that has carried countless lives before. The journey is not a test but a comfort, a reminder that all paths eventually return home. In Chapter 15, we will step into a world of Maya warfare, not with fear or noise, but with calm understanding, seeing how conflict fit into the cycles of life, how even battles were framed within ritual and meaning. Stay with me, because the spiral will carry us gently into that space, showing how even struggle was held safely within the greater balance. From the quiet rivers where canoes glide, we now step into a different part of Maya life, warfare. But stay with me, because here we will not linger on noise or violence. Instead, we will see how conflict, like trade, like farming, like ritual, was woven into cycles, framed within meaning, guided by ceremony. To the Maya, warfare was not chaos, but part of the spiral, a way of negotiating power, renewing alliances and affirming cosmic order. Even in struggle, there was rhythm, there was pattern, there was story. Imagine standing on the edge of a city plaza as dawn begins to rise. Warriors prepare not in frenzy, but with ritual calm. They paint their faces with red and black pigments, symbols of lineage traced carefully on skin. Feathers shimmer in their headdresses. Jaguar pelts drape across shoulders. Obsidian blades gleam faintly in the light. The air smells of resin and earth, and the steady beat of drums echoes across the plaza. It is not only preparation for battle. It is ceremony, a sacred act, as much about gods as about men. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll see that Maya warfare was often limited in scope. It was not the endless conquest we imagine, but ritual conflict between rival cities, guided by calendars and omens. Battles were fought to capture, not to annihilate. The goal was to take noble prisoners, who would then be woven into the fabric of ritual, offered to gods in carefully prepared ceremonies. To fight was not only to win land, but to renew bonds with the divine. Picture two armies facing each other in a clearing, their banners fluttering, their flutes and drums calling. The clash is loud for a moment, then settles into pursuit and capture. Warriors carry ropes and cords, prepare to bind captives. The fighting is fierce, yes, but not endless, not aimed at destruction. Once prisoners are taken, the battle ebbs, and ritual takes over. It is a strange rhythm to us, yet to the Maya it was balance, conflict transformed into offering, chaos folded back into order. And here is a gentle twist. Warfare was not separate from the rest of life. It was timed by the calendar, blessed by priests, commemorated on carved stele. Kings fought not as distant commanders, but as leaders who risked themselves in battle, proving their strength and legitimacy. The capture of a rival lord was more powerful than 1,000 deaths. Victory was measured not in land but in names, in the prestige of those brought home alive. Let's lower the lamp a little and focus on the warrior's tools. Obsidian blades, sharp as glass, glint in torchlight. Wooden clubs inlaid with stone, shields painted with family emblems, spears tipped with flint. These were weapons, yes, but also works of art, carved and painted with care, imbued with meaning. To hold one was not only to prepare for combat, but to carry lineage and prayer into the field. The warrior was never alone. He bore his ancestors, his gods, his city with him. Stay close, because the aftermath of battle was not left untended. Captives were paraded through cities, not humiliated but honored as figures of ritual importance. They were given garments, sometimes even feasted, before being sacrificed to the gods. The act was solemn, not savage. It was part of the exchange that sustained cosmic balance. The spilling of blood was seen as nourishment, as gift, ensuring rains would fall, maize would grow, and cycles would continue. To us it may feel harsh, but within their worldview was reassurance. Life renewed through sacrifice, death folded gently into life. And here's the reassurance. Most people in Maya society lived lives far from battle. Farmers tended fields, artisans shaped clay, families shared meals. Warfare touched them indirectly, through tribute or ceremony, but their days were filled with the ordinary rhythms of work and rest. Even in times of conflict, the fields were planted, the markets opened, the children played. War was a thread in the tapestry, but never the whole cloth. Let's pause and imagine the city after victory. The plaza fills with music, drums beating, flutes rising, dancers swirling in bright feathers. Offerings are laid before temples. Incense thickens the air. Voices chant gratitude. The people celebrate not destruction but renewal, the belief that their gods have been honored, their city protected, their cycle assured. The energy is not frenzy but joy, a collective sigh of relief, as though the balance has been restored. Stay with me, because warfare also shaped alliances. Cities sometimes clashed, sometimes allied, their relationships shifting like the patterns of stars. A marriage between dynasties might seal peace. A shared enemy might unite rivals. War and diplomacy flowed together, each one a step in the dance of politics. To fight was to negotiate. To capture was to communicate. Every battle was part of a larger story of connection. And here's another revelation. War was recorded in stone, on stele and lintels, in murals and codices. Images of kings holding captives, dates carved in precise glyphs, stories told in paint and relief. These records were not meant to terrify, but to commemorate, to inscribe memory into eternity. To carve victory into stone was to ensure the cycle of legitimacy continued, that descendants would remember, that the spiral of history would hold firm. Let's dim the lamp further, and picture the battlefield after all is done. The noise fades, the drums quiet, the torches burn low. Warriors walk back along causeways, their banners trailing, their faces calm once more. The jungle hums again. Birds return to branches. Rivers flow undisturbed. Even conflict, even capture, folds back into silence, into the eternal rhythm of life. The spiral continues, steady, unbroken. Stay close, because the Maya also saw warfare mirrored in the ball game. On stone courts, teams reenacted the struggle between light and dark, life and death. The game was not only sport, it was ritualized conflict, reminding everyone that opposition was part of balance, that struggle could be sacred. Sometimes, prisoners were forced to play, their defeat symbolizing cosmic renewal. Even play was folded into the spiral of war and peace. As you breathe slowly now, imagine standing in a quiet plaza after nightfall. The torches are gone out, the banners folded, the weapons stored away. The stars shine overhead, calm and eternal. Unaffected by the day's struggle, you feel the silence settling, the assurance that even conflict cannot disturb the greater rhythm. You are safe here, held in the knowledge that cycles always return to stillness, that balance always restores itself. In Chapter 16, we will leave warfare behind and step into the sacred ball game itself. Not as contest, but as ceremony, as cosmic drama, as a story the heavens played on stone courts. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral will carry us from the noise of battle into the symbolic harmony of play, from the rhythm of warfare. We now step into the courts where a quieter yet equally powerful drama unfolded, the Maya ball game. But stay with me, because here the sound is not of battle cries, but of rubber balls striking stone, of sandals scuffing against the court floor, of soft voices chanting from the sidelines. The ball game was more than play, more than contest. It was ritual, ceremony, and cosmic storytelling all at once. To enter a ball court was to step into a sacred stage, where the struggles of gods and the balance of the universe were reenacted through movement. Imagine walking into a Maya city and approaching the ball court. The walls rise on either side, sloping inward, their stone surfaces smooth from centuries of play. High above, stone rings are set into walls, their shadows falling long in the afternoon light. The court is silent now, but you can almost hear the echoes of past games. The thud of the ball, the calls of players, the hum of the crowd. To stand here is to stand in a place where myth and life merge seamlessly. Stay close, because in a moment we'll recall the story that gave the game its meaning. In the Popol Vuh, the hero twins Hinapu and Palenque played ball against the lords of the underworld. Their game was not merely sport. It was a struggle between light and darkness, life and death. Through cunning and resilience, the twins triumphed, ensuring the continuation of life and the rising of the sun. Every game played on Earth echoed this cosmic drama, reminding the Maya that even in play, the universe was reflected. Picture the players stepping onto the court. Their bodies are lean, trained through long practice. They wear padded belts around their waists, sometimes with additional protection for hips and knees, because the rules forbid the use of hands or feet. The ball, made of solid rubber, is heavy, bouncing with surprising force. The game begins and players strike the ball with hips, shoulders, and thighs, sending it back and forth across the court. Each impact reverberates like a drumbeat, echoing against stone, a rhythm steady and mesmerizing. And here's a gentle twist. While the game was competitive, its purpose was never simply entertainment. It carried ritual weight. Sometimes captives were forced to play, their defeat sealing their fate as offerings to the gods. Sometimes rulers themselves participated, proving their strength and legitimacy through play. Victory and defeat both carried meaning, each outcome woven into the sacred cycle. The ball game was not escape from life, but its reflection, its mirror, its continuation. Let's lower the lamp in our minds and feel the atmosphere of a game day. Crowds gather in the plaza, families bringing food to share, merchants setting up stalls nearby. The air buzzes with anticipation, the smell of roasting maize and cacao filling the space. Priests bless the court, burning incense that drifts in white spirals toward the sky. The game begins, and the people watch intently, not only for the play itself, but for the symbols it carries. Every strike of the ball, every fall, every point scored is part of the larger drama, tying the present moment to the mythic past. Stay with me, because the ball game was not limited to one city. Courts were built throughout the Maya world, from small villages to great centers like Copan and Chichen Itza. Some courts were modest, others monumental, their walls carved with images of players, captives, and gods. To walk the Maya world was to encounter courts everywhere, reminders that this game was universal, that it carried meaning across centuries and landscapes. And here is another revelation. The ball itself was sacred, made from latex tapped from rubber trees, sometimes mixed with other plants to make it bounce more. It carried life and weight. The act of striking, it was symbolic of celestial bodies, the sun and moon moving across the sky, the planets in their cycles. To keep the ball in play was to keep the universe in motion. To lose, it was to risk imbalance. Isn't it soothing to think that even in play, the Maya saw themselves as caretakers of the cosmos, their movements part of something vast and eternal? Let's pause and imagine a moment of triumph. The ball sails upward, strikes the stone ring with a sharp sound, and passes cleanly through. The crowd erupts in awe, voices rising like a wave. Such a shot was rare, a sign of great skill, a moment believed to carry divine favor. The game pauses, incense is burned, and the event is marked as something more than chance. It is a god speaking to the ball, through the player, through the court itself. Stay close, because the aftermath of games could carry weighty consequences. A ruler who one might secure political legitimacy, reinforce his role as chosen by the gods. A captive who lost might be sacrificed, his blood nourishing the earth, his spirit carried upward in the smoke of incense. To us, such stakes may feel heavy, but to the Maya, they were natural, part of the cycle of life and offering. The ball game was not cruel spectacle, but sacred necessity, a ritual that held the cosmos together. And here's a reassurance. For most games, especially in villages, the stakes were lighter. Farmers played for enjoyment, young men for practice, communities for bonding. Children struck small rubber balls back and forth, laughing, chasing them through courtyards. Not every game ended in sacrifice. Many ended in laughter, in shared food, in rest beneath the trees. Even sacred things could be joyful, woven into daily life with gentleness. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the court at night. The crowds have gone, the torches flicker low, the ball rests silent. The walls rise dark against the sky, their carvings barely visible in moonlight. Crickets sing softly, owls call from nearby trees, and the air is cool and still. Yet even in silence, the court feels alive, as though waiting, as though holding memory of every game, every shout, every chant. To step here is to step into timelessness, into a place where myth and memory never fade. Stay close, because a ball game reminds us of something comforting. That struggle does not always mean destruction. That contest can be sacred. That balance comes through movement. To strike the ball, to keep in play, is to keep the universe alive. And as long as the ball moves, so too does life. Isn't it reassuring to imagine the world as a game always in motion, always balanced, always renewed? As you breathe slowly now, picture yourself standing on a ball court under the stars. The stone is cool beneath your feet. The walls rise gently beside you. You hear, faintly, the echo of a ball striking stone, the laughter of players long gone, the murmur of a crowd. You are not alone. The court holds you. The spiral of play includes you. The cosmos turns with you. You are safe in this rhythm, part of a game that never ends, part of a balance that always returns. In Chapter 17, we will leave the ball court and step into the royal courts themselves, where kings and queens ruled, advised by nobles and priests, their power woven from ceremony and lineage. Stay with me, because the spiral will carry us gently into palaces and plazas, where leadership was not only political but sacred, and where every decision echoed to the lives of thousands. From the stone courts where the ball echoed like the heartbeat of the cosmos, we now step quietly into another space, the royal courts of the Maya, where kings and queens lived, ruled, and prayed. Stay with me, because here we will not find palaces of harsh grandeur or frightening dominance. Instead, we will find plazas filled with incense, halls adorned with painted walls, and leaders who saw themselves not only as rulers of people, but as mediators between earth and sky. To lead in the Maya world was to serve as a bridge, holding the balance of cycles in one's hands, guiding not only politics but ritual. Imagine walking to the heart of a Maya city at dawn. The plazas are wide, their stone floors smooth from countless footsteps. Temples rise high, their stairways steep, their summits crowned with shrines. Alongside them stand palaces, low, sprawling, many-roomed buildings with courtyards open to the sky. The walls are plastered smooth, sometimes painted with vivid reds, blues, and yellows, showing scenes of gods, kings, and ceremonies. Smoke curls from braziers, the scent of copal resin sweet and thick. This is a center of power, but it feels alive, sacred, rhythmic. Stay close, because in a moment we will see how kingship was not inherited in the casual way of bloodlines alone. Maya rulers trace their legitimacy back to gods, their lineage carved in stone, painted in codices, spoken aloud in rituals. A king was not merely the son of a father. He was the heir of cosmic authority, chosen to act as intermediary. His role was to perform rituals, to spill blood in offerings, to ensure the rains came, to guarantee that maize would grow. Political and spiritual duties were inseparable, woven together like threads of the same cloth. Picture a ruler preparing for a ceremony. His attendants dress him in cotton garments embroidered with jade and shell. A headdress of quetzal feathers rises above him, shimmering green in the sunlight. Bracelets and anklets of jade chime softly as he walks. He carries a staff carved with glyphs, a sign of office and lineage. Around him, nobles and priests gather, their garments less elaborate but still dignified. The ruler's steps are measured, his face calm, for he is not only a man but a symbol, a living axis between his people and the gods. And here is a gentle twist. Maya queens, too, held great power. Women of noble lineage could rule in their own right, lead ceremonies, and serve as conduits of legitimacy through marriage. Lady Six Sky of Naranjo, for example, became one of the most powerful figures in Maya history, depicted in steely standing over captives, her role equal to that of kings. The courts were not solely male domains. They were balanced spaces, where lineage flowed through mothers as well as fathers, where women shaped alliances and ceremonies. Let's lower the lamp in our minds and focus on daily life in a palace. Beyond the grandeur, there are quiet rooms where families sit together, where scribes bend over bark paper codices, their brushes steady, recording dates and names. Cooks prepare meals of maize, beans, squash, cacao, and fish, their fires glowing low in clay hearths. Children play in courtyards, their laughter echoing off plaster walls. Dogs curl in shaded corners, dozing. Life in a palace was not only ritual, it was ordinary, too, filled with warmth and rhythm. Stay with me, because power in the courts was also carefully structured. Nobles served as advisors, priests tended the calendars and rituals, scribes recorded history, and artisans crafted the regalia of ceremony. Each role was respected, each function necessary. The ruler stood at the center, but he or she was supported by a web of specialists, each one ensuring that the cycles of politics and cosmos remained balanced. To lead was never solitary. It was communal, supported, shared. And here is another revelation. Bloodletting rituals were central to Maya kingship. A ruler would pierce his tongue or skin with obsidian or stingray spines, letting blood drip onto paper that was unburned. The rising smoke was seen as carrying prayers directly to the gods, opening a channel between worlds. This act, performed in public, demonstrated devotion and legitimacy. To us it may seem painful, but to the Maya it was sacred sacrifice, a necessary exchange to ensure the well-being of all. Even kings and queens gave of themselves, showing that leadership meant service, not only privilege. Let's pause and imagine a great ceremony in the plaza. The crowd gathers, filling the space with soft murmurs. Incense drifts thickly, drums and flutes play steady rhythms. Dancers move in elaborate costumes representing gods and spirits. The ruler ascends the temple stairs, the crowd watching with reverence. At the summit, he performs a ritual, the smoke rising against the sky. The people below reassure that their leader has spoken with the divine. The ceremony is not only spectacle, it is reassurance, a reminder that the cosmos is tended, that order continues. Stay close, because the courts were also centers of diplomacy. Rulers sent emissaries to other cities, received visiting nobles, arranged marriages to secure alliances. In palace halls, negotiations were made over cacao drinks, words recorded by scribes, gifts exchanged with ceremony. A marriage might bring peace between rival cities. A visit might renew trade ties. A gift of jade or feathers might carry deep meaning. The courts were not only places of rule, but places of connection, where the threads of the Maya world were woven together. And here's the reassurance. Even with all the weight of ritual and politics, life in the palace still carried warmth. Families gathered at hearths. Meals were shared. Music played softly in courtyards. At night, torches flickered against painted walls, casting long shadows. The ruler, once the ceremonies were done, might sit quietly with children, might listen to stories told by elders, might watch the stars with the same wonder as farmers in fields. Leadership was sacred, but it was also human, rooted in the rhythms of daily life. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the palace at night. The plazas are quiet now, the crowd's gone, the fire's low. Only a few guards walk the causeways, their torches glowing softly. In the courtyards, families rest in hammocks, the air filled with the scent of flowers and smoke. The ruler, too, rests now, the weight of ceremony set aside for night. Above, the stars shine clear, eternal, steady, the same stars that guided ancestors and will guide descendants. Even here, in the heart of power, the spiral of time continues, wrapping all in its calm embrace. Stay with me, because the Maya courts remind us that leadership, at its heart, is about connection. To rule was to mediate, to balance, to give as much as to receive. Kings and queens were not distant figures. They were visible, engaged, bound by duty to gods and people alike. Their courts were not fortresses of fear, but centers of ritual, community, and continuity. Isn't it soothing to think of leadership as service, as balance, as devotion? As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself walking through a palace courtyard in the quiet of night. The walls glow faintly in torchlight. The air is warm and still. You hear the rustle of leaves, the distant hum of insects, the soft breathing of sleepers. You feel the presence of history all around, the weight of countless ceremonies, the warmth of countless meals, the laughter of countless children. You are safe here, part of a rhythm that stretches across generations. From a quiet workshop of artisans and the steady brushstrokes of scribes, we now drift toward another part of Maya life, rituals and daily devotion, the ways ordinary people and rulers alike wove the sacred into every breath. Stay with me, because here we will not encounter fearsome ceremonies or unsettling images, but the gentle rhythms of prayer, offering, and presence. For the Maya, religion was not confined to temples or great festivals. It was in the home hearth, the village path, the whisper of incense smoke rising through still air. To live was to participate in a sacred cycle, and to forget ritual was to lose balance with the cosmos. Imagine yourself at dawn in a Maya village. The air is cool, the sky faintly pink. Families gather at their hearths. The three stones that held the cooking fire forming a sacred triangle symbolizing stability. Before breakfast begins, a few kernels of maize are cast into the fire, a simple offering of thanks. The flames catch, the smoke rises, and the home feels complete, protected, connected. Even the most ordinary act, preparing food, begins with ritual, begins with gratitude. Stay close, because in a moment we'll see how incense was used everywhere. Copal resin, harvested from trees, was placed in clay censers. When burned, it gave off a sweet, thick smoke, curling upward like a bridge between earth and sky. In plazas, incense carried prayers to the gods. In homes, it cleansed spaces, driving away imbalance, welcoming blessing. The smell of copal was the smell of the sacred, familiar and comforting, a reminder that one was never alone. Picture a family at dusk. The day's work is done, the fields tended, the animals fed. The father lights a small censer, filling the air with fragrant smoke. The mother places tamales on a simple altar, not to be eaten but to be given back, a token to the unseen. Children watch quietly, learning the rhythm of devotion. The dog curls beside the doorway. The fire crackles low. This is not spectacle, but intimacy, ritual folded gently into life. like breath into body. And here's a gentle twist. Ritual did not always require temples or priests. Every person could perform small offerings. Every family could tend its hearth. Large festivals, yes, required elaborate choreography of nobles and priests, but the spiral of devotion stretched into daily acts as well. It meant lighting a candle, whispering a prayer, pouring a few drops of drink onto the earth before raising the cup to lips. Isn't it soothing to imagine that holiness was never far, that the sacred lived in every corner, every gesture? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and move into the great plazas during a festival. Thousands gather, the air alive with drumming, chanting, and dancing. Painted dancers whirl in feathered costumes, their movements telling stories of gods and heroes. Priests chant prayers in measured cadence, their voices rising and falling like waves. The ruler appears, dressed in jade and quetzal feathers, performing rituals not for his own glory, but to ensure the rains will fall, the maize will ripen, the world will remain balanced. The plaza becomes a theater of the cosmos, each participant both actor and witness. Stay with me, because bloodletting rituals were central to these ceremonies, but seen not with fear, but reverence. A priest or ruler, piercing their skin with obsidian or stingray spines, offered their blood as a gift, feeding the gods who had once given life to humanity. The paper stained with drops was burned, the smoke rising like a prayer into the sky. The act was not cruelty. It was reciprocity, a way of keeping the cycle whole. And for those watching, it was reassurance. Their leaders gave of themselves, proving devotion, renewing the bond between human and divine. And here is another revelation. Ritual spaces were everywhere in the city. Not only towering temples, but small shrines at crossroads, altars in courtyards, markers in fields. To walk the city was to move through a sacred landscape, each corner holding memory, each stone holding prayer. Even the ball courts we saw before were ritual spaces, where games symbolized cosmic struggle. The whole world was a temple, every place infused with sacred presence. Let's pause and imagine the soundscape. Drums beat steadily, deep and resonant. Flutes weave melodies above them, high and haunting. Shell trumpets call out across plazas, their tones long and low, voices chant in rhythm, hundreds joining together. It is not loud in a jarring way. It is enveloping, like being held within a great heartbeat. To stand in that sound was to feel part of something larger, reassure that one belonged to the great cycle. Stay close, because the Maya also honored the cycles of the year with festivals tied to planting, harvest, and seasonal change. At planting, offerings were made to the maize gods, seeds blessed, fields sprinkled with sacred water. At harvest, the first fruits were given back, thanks spoken before feasting. Between seasons, ceremonies honored rain deities, sun and moon. Life moved not randomly, but in rhythm with the cosmos, and ritual was a way to stay in step. And here's a reassurance. While rulers and nobles often led the great ceremonies, common people participated fully. They danced, they sang, they feasted, they carried offerings. Ritual was not distant but communal. To stand in a plaza during a festival was to feel the pulse of the city, to be reminded that one was not alone, that every person, high or low, was part of the same cycle. Let's dim the lamp further and imagine night falling after a great festival. The fires burn low, the music quiets, the crowd disperses. Families walk home along causeways, their footsteps soft, their voices hushed. The incense smoke lingers in the air, the stars shine overhead, and the city feels wrapped in calm. In homes, altars glow faintly with candles. Prayers whisper before sleep. The city rests, held in the spiral of devotion. Stay with me, because the Maya saw a ritual not as interruption, but as continuity. Every act, every day, could be framed as sacred. To grind maize was to reenact creation. To weave cloth was to mirror the weaving of the cosmos. To play music was to echo the voices of the gods. Life and ritual were not separate. They were one. Isn't it comforting to think of daily tasks as already holy, already complete, simply by being done with intention? As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself standing before a small household altar. A clay bowl holds incense, a few kernels of maize, a gourd of water. The flame flickers, the smoke rises, and you feel the presence of countless generations doing the same. You are not alone. Your breath joins theirs. Your prayer joins theirs. Your life joins theirs. You are safe in the rhythm of offering and receiving, giving and being given to. The spiral holds you, unhurried, eternal. In Chapter 20, we will turn our gaze to the gods themselves, the pantheon of deities that filled the Maya cosmos with presence. We will meet the maize god, the rain bringer, the lord of the underworld, and the spirits of sun and moon. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral will carry us into their world, where myth and devotion entwine, and where every face of nature held divine reflection. From the soft rhythm of daily ritual, we now lift our gaze toward the deities themselves, the gods who fill the Maya world with presence, who dwelled in maize fields, in rivers, in storms, in stars. Stay with me, because here we will not find frightening beings or harsh punishments. Instead, we will find gods who are close and familiar, who shared in human struggles, who embodied the cycles of life. For the Maya, divinity was everywhere, in every grain of maize, in every drop of rain, in every flicker of fire. To live was to be surrounded gently by the sacred. Imagine yourself standing at dawn in a field of maize. The stalks rise tall and green, tassels catching the first light. The people believed this field was not empty. It was the body of God, the maize lord, who died and was reborn with every harvest. He was young, beautiful, adorned with maize sprouting from his head. His story was the story of humanity itself. For people were made from maize dough, their flesh from kernels, their blood from its juice. To plant, to eat, to live was to share in the life of the maize lord. Stay close, because in a moment we'll meet the rain bringer, Chak, whose lightning axe split the skies and poured water onto fields. He was often shown with long nose, fangs, and shells, carrying a serpent-shaped axe. But the people did not fear him. They prayed to him, called him with chants and dances, asked him to break the clouds open in kindness. In villages, offerings of food and incense were placed at sacred caves and cenotes, places where water dwelled. Each storm was not only weather, it was Chak answering, nourishing, sustaining. Picture a festival to honor Chak. The sky is heavy with clouds. Thunder mutters in the distance. In the plaza, dancers move in serpent-like lines, their costumes shimmering with shells. Drums beat steadily. Flutes call, voices rise and chant. A priest raises a bowl of water, scattering drops to the earth, calling rain to fall. The air smells of copal and damp earth. The people wait with patience, trusting that Chak will hear. Soon, fat drops fall, splashing onto stone, onto maize, onto upturned faces. Laughter rises. The god has answered. The cycle continues. And here is a gentle twist. Gods were not distant or perfect. They could be fickle, playful, even fallible. They stumbled, they argued, they transformed. In the Popol Vuh, the hero twins outwitted the lords of the underworld, proving that even gods could lose, that even divine beings live within the spiral of balance. The Maya did not imagine themselves as powerless before flawless beings. They saw gods as companions in the great cycle, beings who struggled as humans did, beings who needed offerings and care. Isn't it soothing to think of divinity not as unreachable, but as near, as present, as tender as rain? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and visit the underworld, Xibalba. It was not only a place of dread, but of mystery and transformation. The lords of Xibalba were tricksters, testers, figures who challenged humans and gods alike. The hero twins played ball against them, died, and were reborn, proving that death itself was part of the spiral, not an end but a passage. For the Maya, to enter Xibalba was not annihilation. It was another step, another turn, another place within the vast cosmos. Stay with me, because the sun and moon themselves were gods, their daily journey stories of sacrifice and renewal. The sun god traveled across the sky each day, descended into the underworld at night, and returned with dawn, victorious once more. The moon goddess, sometimes linked with fertility, weaving, and cycles, guided women and marked the passage of time. To look up at the sky was never to see emptiness. It was to witness gods in motion, enacting their roles faithfully, reassuring all that balance endured. And here is another revelation. Gods often appeared in many forms. Chak was not one but four, each linked to a direction and a color. East red, north white, west black, south yellow. The maze lord could be youthful in one story, skeletal in another, sprouting anew in yet another. Gods shifted, adapted, multiplied. They were not bound by one mass but wore many, just as nature itself does. Storm and calm, growth and decay, light and dark. The Maya understood this fluidity and found comfort in it. Let's pause and imagine a quiet shrine in the forest. A small stone altar, overgrown with moss, stands near spring. Someone has left offerings. A clay figurine, a few kernels of maize, a woven cloth. The air is still, the water trickles softly. Birds call from the trees. Here, the god of the place is honored, not with grand ceremony, but with simple devotion. To leave a gift is to acknowledge presence, to say, "You are here and I remember." Stay close. Because the Maya pantheon was vast, filled with gods of sun and moon, earth and sky, maize and cacao, death and rebirth, weaving and writing. Each was not isolated but part of the great weave. Each faced another thread in the fabric of life. To pray to one was to connect with the whole, for all were intertwined. All were aspects of the same spiral. And here's the reassurance. Even when God demanded sacrifice, it was framed not as cruelty, but as reciprocity. The gods had given their own blood to create humanity. In return, humans gave back a little of their own, a reminder that all life was shared, that giving and receiving were inseparable. The gods were not tyrants. They were partners in an eternal exchange, one that bound cosmos, nature, and humanity together. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the night sky. The Milky Way stretches like a river of light. The constellations glow softly. To the Maya, this was not random. It was a road of souls, the path of gods, the place where stories lived. Each star had meaning. Each movement was watched, recorded, woven into myth. To gaze upward was to see the gods' handwriting, steady, eternal, reassuring. Stay with me, because the gods of the Maya world were also storytellers. Through myth, they explained why maize grows, why rain falls, why death comes, why dawn returns. These stories were not only entertainment, but maps, helping people live with trust, with patience, with gratitude. To hear them was to remember that life had meaning, that the spiral held steady, that nothing was random or lost. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself sitting at a fire with Maya family, listening as an elder tells the story of the Maize Lord or the hero twins. The flames crackle softly, the smoke drifts upward, the stars shimmer above. The children lean close, their eyes wide, their breath slow. You feel warmth, safety, connection, not only with those around the fire, but with the gods whose stories echo in your ears. You are not alone. You are part of the same story, the same spiral, the same eternal exchange. In Chapter 21, we will move from gods to myths more fully. Tales of creation of heroes of the underworld, told by firesides and carved in stone. Stay with me, because the next turn of the spiral will carry us deeper into story itself, where myth and memory merge, and where every tale whispers reassurance into the night. From the pantheon of gods who dwelled in maize fields, clouds, and stars, we now drift deeper into the stories told of them, the myths that gave shape to Maya understanding, the tales whispered by hearts and carved into stone. Stay with me, because here myth is not frightening nor distant. It is close, intimate, gentle as a story told by a grandparent to a child before sleep. These myths were not only explanations of the world, but comfort. Assurances that life had meaning, that struggles had purpose, that death itself was only another step in the spiral. Imagine sitting by a fire in a Maya courtyard. The night is warm, stars shimmer above, and the air smells faintly of wood smoke and flowers. Families gather, hammocks sway, children curl beneath woven blankets. An elder sits cross-legged by the fire, his voice steady, his hands moving in rhythm with the tale. As the flames flicker, he begins to tell the story of the hero twins, Hinapu and Palenque, whose adventures remind everyone that even the underworld cannot extinguish life. Stay close, because in a moment we'll hear the heart of their tale. The twins were born after their father, a great ball player, was defeated and killed by the lords of Zabalba, the underworld. But the twins inherited his skill, and his courage. They, too, were summoned to play the ball game in the underworld's court, a place filled with traps, darkness, and trickery. The lords tried to deceive them with false trials, false fires, false tests. Yet the twins, clever and resilient, overcame each challenge, turning every trap into triumph. Picture the ball court of Xibalba as the elder describes it. Dark, vast, echoing with the sound of rubber on stone. Torches burn with cold light. Shadows stretch long. The twins move gracefully, striking the ball with hips and shoulders, their movements quick and sure. The lords of death scowl, trying trick after trick, but the twins meet each one with wit. The game is more than sport. It is a very struggle between life and death, played not with fear but with confidence, humor, and balance. And here's a gentle twist. The twins do die, but not as victims. They enter the underworld's jaws willingly, are burned and ground into ashes. Yet from those ashes they rise again, reborn as radiant beings, masters of transformation. They trick the lords of death into requesting their own destruction, and in the power of Xibalba, the twins ascend into the sky, one becoming the sun, the other the moon, ensuring that life would continue, that each dawn would return. Isn't it soothing to think of death not as an end but as renewal, as part of the eternal spiral? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and hear another tale, that of the creation of humanity itself. The elder tells how the gods tried first to make people from mud, but the figures dissolved in rain. Then they shaped them from wood. But these people were hollow, brittle, without souls. Finally, the gods ground maize into dough, shaping flesh from kernels, blood from juice, life from the staple that sustained all. Humanity was born from maize, tied forever to its cycles. To eat was not only to live, it was to renew the covenant, to honor the gift of the gods. Stay with me, because myths were not only grand but everyday. There were stories of animals explaining their habits, why the rabbit has long ears, why the armadillo curls, why the jaguar moves so silently. These tales brought nature close, made the world feel intimate, alive with personality. To hear them was to feel surrounded not by emptiness, but by companions, each creature a neighbor, each one carrying meaning. And here is another revelation. Myths were not static. They were told differently in different villages, painted with local color, adapted to each setting. A mountain might be the home of a god in one place, a cave in another. A hero might speak in one dialect here, another there. The myths lived and breathed, changing with each retelling, growing richer like a woven cloth passed through generations. Isn't it comforting to imagine stories as alive, never rigid, always flowing with the people who told them? Let's pause and imagine the story of the sun. Each evening, he descends into the underworld, battles through darkness, and returns at dawn. Each morning is not routine but miracle, a triumph retold daily in the sky. For the Maya, to watch the sunrise was to see myth enacted, to remember that even in the darkest night, return was assured. The story gave hope, gave patience, gave reassurance that cycles always restore themselves. Stay close, because myths were also carved into stone. On Stelian temple walls, scenes from the hero twins' adventures, from creation myths, from cosmic struggles were depicted in glyphs and images. To walk through a Maya city was to walk through a landscape of stories, each wall another page in the book of myth. The people did not separate reading from seeing, nor seeing from hearing. Stories surrounded them in every form, whispering always of continuity, of belonging. And here's the reassurance. Myth was not only about gods and heroes, it was about people, too. Listeners saw themselves in the twins who faced trials, in the maze from which they were made, in the animals that taught lessons. Myth was mirror as much as tale, reflection as much as invention. To hear it was to feel one's life affirmed, one's struggles understood, one's place secure. Let's dim the lamp further and picture the elder finishing his tale. The fire is low now, embers glowing softly. Children are half asleep, their eyes heavy but their faces calm. The adults nod, murmuring gently. The story's rhythms familiar, comforting. The elder's voice slows. The flames flicker, the night deepens. Yet the story does not end. It lingers, carried into dreams, carried into tomorrow's telling. Stay with me, because the myths of the Maya remind us that story is itself sacred. To tell is to connect, to preserve, to renew. Each word is an offering. Each tale a bridge across time. In listening, one participates in a spiral, becoming part of something that began long before and will continue long after. Isn't it soothing to think that every story told, even now, keeps the world alive? As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself lying by that fire. The stars wheel overhead, the embers glow beside you, the elder's words still echoing faintly. You feel safe, wrapped in story, wrapped in the spiral of myth. You are not alone. Your breath joins countless others who listen to the same tales. Your dreams drift into the same river of memory. You are part of the story, and the story holds you gently, eternally. In Chapter 22, we will bring the spiral to its close, not with an ending but with a gentle fading, an outro that rests in gratitude. We will reflect softly on all we have seen, the maze fields, the ball courts, the gods, the stories, and then taper into a lullaby of thanks. Stay with me, because the final chapter will not end but simply flow into silence, inviting you to drift further into the all-night journey. Now, dear friend, we come to the final chapter of our long journey together. We have walked through maze fields at dawn, listened to drums echo across plazas, followed merchants along jungle trails, and gazed up at stars with Maya astronomers. We have met kings and queens, artisans and scribes, farmers and children, gods and heroes. And yet, as we reach this last turn in the spiral, you will see that there is no true ending here. The Maya taught that time does not stop. It turns, returns, and renews. So this closing is not a door shut, but a soft fading into quiet, into rest, into the continuation of the cycle. Imagine yourself sitting on the wide stone steps of a temple as twilight settles. The day's heat is slipping away, and a cool breeze drifts through the plaza. The sky is painted with gentle hues, rose, gold, violet, then slowly deepens into indigo. Around you, the city quiets. Families finish meals. Children laugh softly before hammocks sway them to sleep. Fires glow in courtyards. The great temples and palaces stand like silhouettes against the dimming sky. You are safe here, watching the day exhale and night take its place. Stay with me, because in a moment you'll notice how the spiral of all we've seen continues here in this evening scene. The maze and fields beyond the city is at rest, the stalks whispering in the breeze, patient for the coming rains. The gods, too, continue their journeys, the sun descending into the underworld, the moon rising softly to guide the night. In the sky, Venus shines low, a bright beacon. The myths we've heard are not locked in books. They live in this moment, in the simple beauty of the evening. Picture the temples now in moonlight. Their steps, once crowded with worshippers, lie silent, but their stones still hold memory. The carvings glow faintly, shadows filling their grooves. A stela shows a king offering his blood in devotion. Another shows a maze lord reborn. These are not relics of a lost world. They are voices still speaking, gentle as the night breeze. To walk among them is to walk among stories, to feel the presence of generations who lived, laughed, prayed, and rested here. And here is a gentle twist. Even as the great cities eventually fell silent, the Maya people did not vanish. Their descendants live on today, tending maize fields, speaking Maya languages, practicing rituals, telling the same myths by firesides. The spiral never broke. It continues through them, through every kernel planted, every prayer whispered, every story told. Isn't it soothing to know that what seems like endings are really continuations, that what appears gone is still here, alive in new form? Let's lower the lamp in our minds and step into a Maya home at night. The hearth glows softly, 3 stones cradling the embers. A pot simmers low, filling the air with warmth and comfort. On a small altar nearby, candles flicker beside maize, cacao, and flowers. Simple offerings, luminous in the dark. A family settles into hammocks, their breathing steady, their day complete. Outside, crickets sing, owls call, leaves rustle gently. This is not spectacle, not grandeur, just a sacred woven into ordinary life, reassuring and eternal. Stay close, because the spiral of our story is also your spiral. The cycles of day and night, of breath in and out, of sleep and waking, hold you now just as they held the Maya centuries ago. You are part of the same rhythm, the same continuity. As you listen, as you rest, as you drift towards sleep, you are stepping into the same eternal dance, safe within its embrace. And here is another revelation. Though we often think of history as past, in truth it is present, alive in memory, alive in story. Each time we tell the Maya, they live again, not as figures locked in stone, but as voices around fire, as hands planting maize, as eyes gazing at stars. By listening, you have joined that chain, become part of that remembering. You, too, now carry the spiral forward. Let's pause and breathe. Imagine the vast sky over the Maya world. Stars shimmer endlessly. The Milky Way stretches like a river of light. To the Maya, it was a road of souls, the place where gods traveled. Tonight, it is also your sky, your comfort. As you gaze inward, or if you glance out your window, you share in the same wonder, the same calm, the same reassurance that the universe is wide, steady, and always returning. Stay with me, because in these final moments we can weave together everything we've touched. The maize fields remind us of nourishment, the ball court of balance, the royal courts of service, the artisans of memory, the scribes of continuity, the merchants of connection, the gods of presence, the myths of meaning. Each was a thread, and together they form the cloth that covers us gently now, a blanket woven of story and history. You are wrapped in it, safe, warm, unhurried. And here's a reassurance. Though our story is long, though it has turned many times, though we have walked through plazas, fields, temples, and forests, it has never hurried you. It has moved steadily, like a slow river, carrying you safely. And now that river is broad and calm, its current slowing, ready to carry you into still waters, into rest. You need not do anything, just drift, just breathe, just let the spiral hold you. Let's dim the lamp fully and imagine the city completely at rest. The plazas lie empty, the fires are out, the stars will overhead. The temples stand tall, their steps bathed in moonlight, silent and timeless. In the forest, jaguars pad softly, monkeys sleep in branches, insects hum. The rivers flow steady, unseen but unceasing. The world is quiet, and you are quiet with it. The spiral has brought us here, to stillness, to safety, to peace. As you breathe slowly now, imagine lying beneath a woven blanket, the sound of distant rain on thatched roofs, the faint glow of embers in the hearth. You are not alone. You're surrounded by story, by history, by continuity. The Maya spiral enfolds you, and through it, the universe whispers, "Rest now, all is well." You drift gently, unhurried, into sleep, into dream, into the next turn of the cycle. In this outro, there is no sharp ending, no sudden break. Only gratitude for the stories we've shared, for the journeys we've taken together, for the quiet presence of history that holds us. Thank you for walking this path with me, for listening, for remembering. When you wake, the spiral will still be here, waiting, ready to carry you again. Until then, let yourself rest deeply, knowing you are safe in the embrace of time.